I don't know. Anybody hear us?
Check, check, check. There we go.
Green light. There you go.
Making sure all our mics are working.
Okay, bear with us. This is something new to us. We're kind of out of our normal realm in the business. I want to call to order this November 7th, 2024 meeting of the Marshall County Board of Zoning Appeals. First item of business is a roll call of the members.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Hostetler?
Here.
Mr. Kephart? He's on his way.
Mr. Gephardt.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Gustafson?
Yes, here.
Ms. Mears? And Mr. Allen?
Okay, the next item is the approving of the minutes of the October 8th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a second?
I will second.
Motion made, second to approve the minutes. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Minutes are approved. Ty is going to take over the meeting right now, so we'll let him do his presentation.
All right, I understand that a brief welcome. Welcome this evening to the Marshall County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting at the Plymouth High School Auditorium. Before we get too far, we have a couple of housekeeping notes and rules. We have been instructed by the fire marshal that there is to be no one standing along the walls and no extra chairs are to be set up. We have been granted use of the facility, but there is a deadline of 10 p.m. for us to vacate the building. So at approximately 9:30 this evening, the BZA will suspend where we are in the meeting, and a continued date, time, and location will be determined at that time. It has or will be recommended that a brief recess or intermission occur prior to the public hearing due to the estimated length of tonight's meeting/hearing. They would appreciate if our guests to the newly renovated auditorium would please treat the facility with respect. They do not allow food or drinks in the auditorium. Water is permitted if it has a tight lid, because if it spills, it will run all the way down to the front since the house seats are on a slope. They do not allow their students to put their feet up on the backs of the chairs or over the tops of the chairs. And there are bathrooms to both the left and the right as someone exits the back of the house. Seeing as that some individuals within the audience may have never attended a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting before, we thought it best to be able to give you a brief layout of how the meeting works, how it flows. That way you kind of have an idea of how everything's going to be rolling. In terms of the welcome, we've gone through that. We've done the minutes. Tonight we'll end up going through the agenda items, including the rules of procedure and the solar variance itself, which is why many of you are here. And then there'll be an adjournment. During that variance aspect, there will be an introduction of the case, a staff report, a brief applicant presentation, BZA's initial questions, and then the public hearing will open. It'll go in order of those in favor, those against, and then the applicant will have some opportunity for clarity. And then it goes into the BZA's discussion, and finally BZA motion and vote. We've already gone through the minutes. In terms of rules of procedure, so everybody understands the conduct of the hearing itself, there's going to be the introduction of the proposal and a report from the plan director, then the presentation of that proposal by the applicant. There'll be some opening questions, likely from the BZA and the alternates. Then getting into the public hearing itself, there will be persons speaking in favor, persons speaking against, a statement by a group or representative. The petitioner may be provided opportunity to answer questions or offer rebuttal, and public may be afforded additional comment to clarify those issues. And then it gets into BZA discussion, a BZA motion, and BZA voting itself. The majority of it by at least 3 BZA members is required for action on that case. There's several points in time during the presentations or the individual speaking that they'll be given 5 minutes to do so unless otherwise permitted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. In review of the rules of procedure and rules in relationship to many of the communities that have gone through similar acts like this. There have been no amendments recommended to those rules, but there have been recommendations created by staff just for points of clarity. And it would be best if the BZA makes a determination and vote on these changes, which would include a presentation of the proposal by an applicant should be allowed 10 minutes instead of the 5 as outlined within the rules. The question and rebuttal time by the applicant should be allowed 15 minutes. And then there does need to be some clarity as to the letters that are presented to staff are not regulated within the rules of procedure, and does the BZA want staff to read them aloud, or would you like them to be read aloud who it is and what their stance is, or would you like staff to provide you a copy of all of those letters to be able to take under your consideration? So we'll pause there for your discussion.
Can you hear him?
Not very well.
It's really hard to hear you, Ty.
So there are 3.
About the letters?
Right, you have the letters themselves. Those letters are not dictated within the rules and regulations, the rules and procedure. There's no guidance to that. We could read all of the letters to you. We could read the letters to you in terms of who had sent it and what their approval or denial recommendation is, or we can make copies of all those letters and provide them as copies to you for you to read.
Is there a considerable amount of them?
We're sitting currently between a dozen and 15 letters, many of which are 3 to 4 pages in length.
I'm okay with reading them. You?
I would prefer he just tell us if they're in favor, get who they are and their address, and if they're in favor or opposed. It's your guys' call. That's my preference.
I like this to be as open as possible. Everybody know as much as everybody can know, so I think we read them.
Good.
Whatever you want.
We'll read 'em. We're going to read them after the pros and cons and the no, right?
Okay.
As we normally do. Okay.
And I think it's asking for some extended time limits on presentations, yes.
Correct. So there is a recommendation to permit the applicant to have 10 minutes to present 10 minutes to present their application in the beginning and 15 minutes during the rebuttal. The rules and regulations allow you to go greater than 5 minutes at your discretion, but to be upfront and apparent to everybody, that was staff's recommendation to be upfront.
Okay.
But it's your decision to make a motion on that.
Whatever you decide, it'd be best to make a motion, make a second. Speak up, this is supposed to be a public meeting. Now, we don't know what the hell you're saying up there. You have a private conversation. Let us be part of it.
Can the IT do anything? I can barely hear you guys talk.
Is that better? Can anybody hear me? Okay. I said my recommendation was that whatever the BZA decides to do regarding the rules of procedure needs to be made by a motion, a second, and then a vote concerning basically the allotment of time for the presentation and the rebuttal in addition to the reading of the letters.
So what do you, 10 minutes?
He's asking for a it's 10 minutes for the presentation, 15 for the rebuttal.
Right.
And then I think you're going to have to. Wish we would have had this back home. Just explaining to Jeff what I think Ty's asking for. Well, I think the other thing that we're not talking about is the presentation of any remonstrators, for or against, the time limit there. You're going to want that established at this point?
The time limit for those that are interested in speaking, whether for or against, is already dictated in terms of 5 minutes or as the BZA sees fit.
And that's what he's looking for, a motion to change that if we want to change that.
No, he's really looking for a motion on presentation and rebuttal and reading of the letters.
I'm sorry, I was trying to fix my lapel mic to make sure the direction I face is.
This is ridiculous. We can't hear.
So staff's recommendation was 10 minutes for the presentation by the applicant, 15 minutes by the applicant for rebuttal, and for you to make a determination on the letters. If you want them all read in their entirety, make that a part of the motion. If you want them read with the name and their recommendation, make that. Or if you want them all as copies to you, make that recommendation. You got 3 options on the last piece.
I'll make a motion that we extend the presentation time to 10 minutes for the applicant, 15 minutes for the rebuttal, and that the letters are read aloud, into the record.
I'll second.
Do I have a second?
Motion made and seconded. You want a roll call vote? Yes.
Please.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Hostetler,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Gustafson.
Yes.
Okay. So those have been amended accordingly. So getting into our presentation this evening for the Tamarack 24 BZA 45, Tamarack Solar Energy LLC. The applicant is in attendance. Would you be able to approach your podium and state your name and address for the record, please?
Can everyone hear me? My name's Ethan Sternberg. I am here representing the Tamarack Solar Project. My address is 1 South Wacker, Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, we have a request for a special use to allow a 150 megawatt, 446 panel acre farm scale solar energy system that has 1,435 acres within perimeter fencing in portions of West and Union Township. The parcels associated with this project include parcel 5130, 50, 3120, 000, 005, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3120, 000, 003, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3120, 000, 007, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3120, 000, 008, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3120, 000, 011, 001, 017, parcel 50, 3120, 000, 009, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3128, 000, 001, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3129, 000, 004, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3129, 000, 005, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3129, 000, 003, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3129, 000, 002, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3129, 000, 001, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 006, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 003, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 003, 001, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 035, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 029, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 011, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3130, 000, 014, 000, 017, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 004, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 005, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 002, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 033, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 024, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3131, 000, 014, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3132, 000, 011, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3132, 000, 013, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3132, 000, 009, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3132, 000, 006, 000, 013, parcel 50, 3132, 000, 006, 000, 013, Parcel 50, 31, 32, 000, 004, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 31, 31, 000, 010, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 31, 33, 000, 037, 000, 013. Parcel 0, 21, 04, 000, 002, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 04, 000, 003. Parcel 002, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 008, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 007, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 04, 000, 003, 003, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 04, 000, 005, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 04, 000, 008, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 011, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 015, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 014, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 010, 001, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 026, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 012, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 030, 000, 013. Parcel 50, 21, 05, 000, 001, 000, 013. So the way the presentation is broken up, you have the staff report that has the analysis, the decision criteria, and I'll go through all of those, including all the other considerations associated with the decision criteria, a recommendation, and then it'll have a completion of action requested and board determination. So before we get into that, wanting to show where the project's located, all the different parcels associated with that. Here's a large screenshot of all the parcels included. There's 47 out of the 50 parcels associated with the project. The project's been kind of broken up into two sections within this view. The parcels at or just north of the river, and those that are lying south of the river. And you can denote the Union Township versus Town of Culver zoning jurisdiction change at the bottom. Parcels 42, 43, and 44 are all outside the project and won't be discussed this evening. There's nothing to do with that in this application in terms of whether or not the BZA approves or denies this project. Anything in relationship to parcels 42, 43, and 44 are all under the governance of the Town of Culver. Here it's a large screenshot of our GIS system showcasing the project from the north end to the south end within our jurisdiction. And here is a rough screen grab of the location itself, trying to better dictate those spaces. And here's the some of the environmental features, including the floodplain that go through the project around the river.
Can you guys hear?
We can't hear over here either.
You can't hear it? Thank you. Can the board hear me now? A little bit? Okay.
Oh, what's his, his speeches or what? I guess I don't need it.
I think everybody just has to be louder for you. They have to be louder for you. You have to be louder for them. Because there's no speakers that are facing you, which is very hard.
Okay.
Check. So I'm going to turn that one.
Check.
20.
There we go.
Testing, 20, 20.
There we go. 25. Check. 25. 25. Check.
Okay. I believe this one works. All right, we'll go ahead and get back with the presentation. Can the board hear me a little bit better now? I know the audience can hear me. Thank you. Does it help you if I turn towards you a lot better? So here you have the future land use map in relationship to the comprehensive plan and roughly dictating the project area is the square in the bottom left-hand corner. Here is the suitability for agriculture map as dictated within the comprehensive plan itself. And again, same green square, blue square. The A1 agricultural land uses are shown here, what's permitted and what's special in terms of the district itself. Here is a large screenshot of the project, zoomed in to quarter scale. This would be the west central location, east central, and then the south side. We went out and took pictures using a drone to be able to try and get some better views for the project itself, just trying to get an idea of what does everything look like. A little bit easier when you're up in the air. This location's at State Road 8 and Tamarack Road. Then we moved to State Road 8 and Upas Road. Then we moved down to 14B and Upas. Then slid down to 15B and Union Road. Next was 16th Road and Thorn Road. Then finally State Road 17 and 16th Road. Here was the haul routes as proposed within the application itself, and then the transmission infrastructure throughout Marshall County. So for the analysis, the applicant is seeking to construct a solar farm under the Marshall County zoning ordinance, which includes 50 project parcels, but only 47 are within the jurisdiction of Marshall County. The remaining 3 are within the jurisdiction of the town of Culver and would need separate review and approval through their processes. The project is a collective of 2,974 leased acres, 2,707 within the county, 267.23 within Culver's, 1,435 acres within the project fence, 1,278 acres are under the county jurisdiction, and 157 under Culver's jurisdiction. And 446 acres would be under panel, 397 within county's jurisdiction, and 49 within Culver's. The project encompasses portions of both West and Union Townships outside of Burr Oak. The energy generated will converge on the project substation before following a transmission line to the Burr Oak NIPSCO substation, which provides power to the MISO Mid-Continent Independent System Operator grid that spans from the U.S.-Canada border to the Gulf of Mexico, powering homes and businesses within 15 states. Per the applicant, the project began securing leases in 2019, pending variances in 2024, would seek target operation in 2028, 2029. The panels that will be used on site will be bifacial, able to absorb sunlight on 2 sides, polysilicone, which are solid panels and do not house liquids. The panels will be mounted on a single-axis tracker that will follow the sun's path during the day from east to west. The project area will not host solar in areas which include wooded lots, wetlands, floodplain, ditches, residential, and other setbacks, and areas with significant slope that will either be left vegetated or maintained in their current use. Within the application, there is a request to vary from some of the existing requirements, including the request for extending the expiration of the special use approval from 1 year to 4 years, along with those dates being told an equivalent time frame due to any litigation. The final request is to be able to make changes to the location of the project infrastructure from the preliminary site plan and the special exception application so long as those changes meet the criteria outlined specifically in the application, but are more generally described as reasonable changes limited to location of panel arrays, collection lines, and access roads, internal to the project fence, and does not increase the size, footprint of the project, and are in accordance with the zoning ordinance. The developer is committed to ensuring county roads post-construction will be in as good or better condition than prior to construction. During peak construction, the applicant is anticipating an average of 250 round trips per day, with most of them being passenger vehicles. The construction will be set in 8 phases: site preparation and pre-seeding, pile driving, racking system, trenching, install of modules, inverters, post-construction restoration, and operation. Invenergy is committed to providing buffering as required within the zoning ordinance by planting native evergreens, deciduous trees, and shrubs. There are 2 screening types with different densities depending on the adjacent context. Within the project, they will plant native and naturalized grasses and forbs for ground cover, which will help with wildlife habitats, increasing water infiltration, and through the deep roots help promote microbial activity and soil health. During the environmental review phase by the developer, they conducted an analysis of the project area to identify whether or not there were species determined by the Endangered Species Act are present. The study established that there are 2 federally listed species, the Indiana bat and northern long-eared bat, listed as potentially present within the project area. The report was reviewed by IDNR, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and USFWS, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and plans to avoid impact by minimizing tree clearing when required during the inactive season as defined by USFWS. Per the applicant, the project is committing to utilizing solar perimeter fencing strategies and specification options which have been demonstrated as effective in avoiding or minimizing fence impacts to wildlife while maintaining adequate facility security. The project will monitor stormwater runoff and compaction testing at various locations. Routine maintenance is to generally include daily general site condition inspections, monthly substation inspections, semi-annual inverter inspections and air filter replacements, annual racking, cable termination, and fastener checks, and as need checks of facility security cameras and entrance lighting. Per the applicant, solar panels are designed to harness energy by absorbing sunlight through, therefore produce minimal glare. As indicated within the application, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has in short a policy that regulates glint and glare on personnel working in the air traffic control tower, and there are no airports within 500 feet of the project. The only recognized airport is Plymouth Municipal Airport, which does not have a tower. As for signal interference, the applicant claims that the panels do not emit electromagnetic interference, EMI, but the inverters are capable of emitting low EMI. Invenergy has indicated they have worked to carefully site inverters in the middle of the array areas. A sound study was completed and can be found in greater detail within the application, but per the applicant, no noise receptor exceeded an hourly average sound level greater than 42 weighted decibels, which is less than both the Indiana Code and Marshall County zoning ordinance of 50 weighted decibels. During review of the soils within the project area using the USDA Web Soil Survey, there were 44 individual soil types identified ranging from less than 1 acre to nearly 600 acres spread across the entire 2,600 acre project area. Ashtamo, sandy loam, 0 to 1% slope was the most frequent in area soil type with 587.5 acres, amassing 22.43% of the project area. The remaining top 10 soil types included a varying slope plainfield sand, Elston sandy loam, Newton loamy fine sand, Guilford muck sand loam, Bremen's Morocco loamy sands, Colombo sand, Rensselaer loam, and Guilford sandy loam. The top 10 soil types covered 1,794 out of 2,619.5 studied acres, which is 68.49%. The top 5 soils covered 1,403 acres, or 53.57%. According to the 1980 soil survey of Marshall County produced by the USDA, the top 5 soils, Ashimo series soils, consist of deep, well-drained soils on moraines and outwash plains where permeability is moderately rapid to very rapid. Plainfield series soils consist of deep, excessively drained, rapidly permeable soils on outwash plains. Elson series soils consist of deep, well-drained soils on outwash plains where permeability is moderately to very rapid. And Newton series soils consist of very deep, very poorly drained, rapidly permeable soils on moraines and outwash plains. Ashmo series soils, 0 to 1% slope is suitable to corn, soybeans, and small grains. Plainfield series soils, 0 to 2% slope is poorly suited to cultivated crops due to droughtness being the main limitation. Plainfield series soils, 2 to 6% slope is not suited to cultivate crops because of the droughtiness and wind erosion. Elson series soils, 0 to 2% slope is suited to corn, soybeans, and small grains with a moderate available water capacity being the main limitation. And Newton series soils, 0 to 1% slope is suited to corn, soybeans, and small grains, but water capacity, wetness, and strong acidity are the main limitations. For Invenergy, the siting of the Tamarack project was due to a number of factors, including energy demand, existing infrastructure, energy resource, permitting, and land. The decision criteria that are to be taken into consideration for special use cases include general welfare, development standards, ordinance intent, comprehensive plan, and 11 other considerations. For the general welfare, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. So based on the application as revised and submitted on September 10th, there should not be injury to the public health or safety so long as best practices and safe means of installation and operation are adhered to. There are interests in the long-term health of the subject property and what may impact adjoining properties and residences, including zinc levels for galvanized support structures, along with possible impact of inverters on adjacent residences. General welfare of the community should not be substantially impacted in a negative fashion, but will likely impact neighbors' perception or view from their property. For development standards, the requirements and development standards for the requested use as prescribed by the ordinance will be met. In review, the development standards have been reviewed and the application, including clarifications and additional requested information, has been addressed or made commitments to provide prior to building permit. For ordinance intent, granting the special use will not be contrary to the general purpose served by this ordinance and will not permanently injure the other property uses in the same zoning district and vicinity. With review, the intent behind the Marshall County zoning ordinance is to lay out uses that are permitted by right, uses that require additional approval through the Board of Zoning Appeals, special uses which include this application, and where uses are not permitted unless otherwise left to the discretion of the planning director. The special uses are identified as uses that are acceptable to a specific zoning district so long as certain conditions and criteria are met, including approval of the BZA. The ordinance lays out solar projects like this as a special use within the A1 agricultural district, the I1 industrial district, and the I2 heavy industrial district zoning districts. Therefore, the proposed use would meet the intent of the zoning ordinance as amended in 2024. For the comprehensive plan, the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the zoning district in which it is located and the Marshall County Comprehensive Plan or Comp Plan. The Marshall County Comprehensive Plan was adopted in 2004, then amended in 2013. With the comp plan itself, there is no direct reference to the term solar or energy, as the comp plan does not clearly address uses like solar that are acreage intensive, but are a different level of impact on land in comparison to traditional types of residential, commercial, and industrial developments. Much of the development references within the comp plan refers to the extension of utilities and services along with locations around vehicular corridors. The project area has a number of future land use designations, including agricultural conservation and rural village. The comp plan identifies the agricultural land use as land that is meant to remain largely rural, with uses focusing on farming operations. The agricultural land use category is intended to allow for some residential development. Agricultural land use areas are found in locations that are viable for farming, but may also be feeling growth pressure for nearby urban communities. Urban type services and infrastructure should not be provided to agricultural areas. Farms and other development should be able to be served by individual well and septic systems. Agricultural uses appropriate for these areas include traditional farming uses as well as agricultural product storage and distribution facilities, including commercial grain elevators, stables, natural preserves, and other animal or food production related activities. The comp plan identifies the conservation land use as due to the location of the Yellow River within the project boundaries. The area surrounding the Yellow River has heightened environmental sensitivity, which includes floodplains along rivers and streams, riparian areas, steep slope areas, wetland areas, and significant woodlands. The area is designated as conservation area to recognize their sensitivity and provide them appropriate protection from development impacts. All of these natural areas provide essential amenities to Marshall County. They serve as wildlife habitats, provide natural filtration of water, recharge underground aquifers, in case where conservation designations occur in the context of a larger land use designation, the development designs should be sensitive to impacts on the areas to be conserved. Environmentally sensitive land should be conserved in large tracts where possible to prevent the fragmentation of wildlife habitats. The comp plan identifies the rural village land use as a category to preserve and maintain the character of unincorporated communities. Burke was developed around the intersection of two transportation routes, including State Road 17 and the railroad currently owned by New York City St. Louis Railroad Company, Norfolk and Western, historically known as the Nickel Plate Road. Focusing new growth around these rural communities will reduce residential sprawl in the county, maximize public infrastructure expenditures, and protect farms and the environment from residential encroachment. The comp plan can be best described as a community guidebook. It will help guide the Plan Commission in its decision-making process. However, it addresses many other community issues as well. When reviewing development plans, making budgets, or setting priorities, this document should be used to help make decisions. Because of its emphasis on public participation, this plan gives county leaders knowledge of what the community wants and needs. The comp plan can assist with the county when considering infrastructure or economic development decisions, provided civic groups with ideas on how to strengthen and enhance the community, and serve as legal basis for protection and conservation of sensitive environmental and historic areas. Though the public input process during the creation of the comprehensive plan, the public identified 5 key aspects, including farmland and open space preservation, environmental protection, growth management, rural character and aesthetics, and economic development. These 5 topics can be generally summarized with the desire to preserve the natural and agricultural areas of the county, protecting the environment, and strategically managing the development of rural areas of the county to maintain the modern economy, which has been characterized by uncertainty and change, and the quality of life for its residents to live and work. As identified within the comp plan, as growth occurs, more of Marshall County's rural farm and forest land is threatened with conservation to residential, commercial, and other uses. Natural lands such as these can be protected effectively through a combination of growth policies and creative design techniques. According to the comp plan, the growth of Marshall County's employment base should not come at the expense of the natural environment. While state and federal regulations govern industrial practices with regard to the environment, the county can implement environmental design standards within regard to the development of industrial facilities. The long-term needs of the county comes with not stressing growth into inappropriate areas, and such services would include streets and sewers, but police and fire protection, parks and recreation opportunities, and school facilities. The comp plan goes on to indicate that the economic development can take several forms and should seek out diversity of industries. This includes providing opportunities for agricultural, industrial, professional office, and home workshop development in the county. Each type of employer has special needs, and those needs must be accommodated in Marshall County to attract new businesses. Outside of the land use map provided by the comp plan, there is a suitability for agricultural map that denotes the grounds of Marshall County within 4 levels: excellent, good, fair, and poor. Generally within the map, the ground deemed as excellent are within Bourbon Township, Durham Township, and northern portion of North Township. The remaining places vary from good to poor, being the areas around the Yellow River, downstream of the city of Plymouth, and most of the area around West County line. The project area is included mostly within the poor designation, with some spaces within the good designation. For other considerations, one of those includes topography and other natural site features. There are a number of county ditches and tiles along with the Yellow River and multiple points of floodplain and wetlands that traverse the project area. Some of the county regulated drains include the Harry Cool, South Arm, Yellow River, Joseph Heiser, John Lichtenberg, and Burrow Bollinger. On top of the water-based natural environmental features, the area can be categorized as having ground that is relatively flat with areas of rolling terrain. The zoning of the site and surrounding properties. The zoning of the subject property is A1 agricultural and I1 industrial districts. The surrounding properties are mostly A1, but the rural village of Burr Oak has a mixture of the zoning including T1 town residential I-1 industrial, and C1 general commercial. The area is also adjacent to the Culver zoning jurisdiction, which includes A1, I1, and S1 zoning classifications. Driveway locations, street access, and vehicular pedestrian traffic. There will be several new driveways off county and state roads that will need their associated permits. There will be a significant increase in traffic during construction, but only will result in a few additional trips over the existing traffic counts during operation of the facility, as the facility will be staffed by multiple solar technicians. For parking, including the amount, location, and design, there is currently one main proposed laydown yard where the majority of the parking and storage will take place on 15th Road west of the existing NIPSCO substation. At the main laydown yard, there may be an operation and maintenance building where operational parking and storage would take place. Under the county zoning ordinance passed in 2024, construction parking will not be permitted along public roadways. For landscaping, screening, and buffering, there are two proposed buffer plans as outlined in the application. One is used when there is no adjacent screening, and the other is implemented when there is some adjacent screening. For other space and other site amenities, open space is not applicable for this specific application. For noise production and hours of operation, a noise study was conducted and provided as a part of the application and confirmed that the county's 2024 edition of the ordinance to include noise regulation has been met. For other considerations, there are several other conditions reviewed in relationship to the project and can be outlined within the analysis for recommendation sections. For the placement, design, intensity, height, and shielding of lights per the application, lighting within the array areas will be limited to lights at gate locations for safety and operational purposes. At the project substation, a motion-activated security camera system is planned to be installed with lighting to monitor the project substation. Lighting will be shielded and directed downwards towards the project components to limit local light pollution and off-site impacts. Lighting will not extend beyond the perimeter of the facility and will comply with the Marshall County zoning ordinance requirements. For the traffic generation, there will be a significant increase in traffic during construction, but will only result in a few additional trips over existing traffic counts during the operation of the facility, as the facility will be staffed by multiple solar technicians. And then the general site layout as it relates to its surroundings. The general site layout can be best shown in the site plan as provided, and we have provided the 27 pages here on your screen to be shown shortly. They're identified as sheets 3 through 30 within the site plan itself, beginning with sheet 3, and this is starting in the northwest corner and will work its way west to east as it goes through the lines and goes down south. So sheet 4, coming to Tamarack Road. Sheet 5 with the intersection of State Road 8 and Tamarack, or State Road 8 and Tamarack. Then you have State Road 8 and Upis, east to State Road 8, continuing on State Road 8. And then the last section there on sheet 9. Sheet 10 then moves to Upis Road as we travel south to 14B, intersection of Upis Road and 14B Road. Sheet 13 and 14. This is the intersection with Tulip. Sheet 15. Sheet 16. This gets to the intersection with State Road 17 where the transmission line crosses 17. Sheet 20. Sheet 21. You have 15th and Thorn. The Baroque area. Sheet 25. Thorn and 16th. And then you have sheets 28, 29, and 30 within Culver's jurisdiction. So for recommendation, based on the information provided and reviewed by the Technical Review Committee, TRC provided no recommendation forward to the BZA. The TRC had some of the following concerns as a part of the October 8th comments sent to the applicant, including drainage discrepancies, required applications, along with the verification of the tile locations, emergency plan clarifications and procedures, and an objection to the application being a violation of the comprehensive plan. Staff recognizes the controversy and polarization around the project. There's a balance between the rights of a landowner to do what they want with their property, but a right of the adjacent landowner for the potential impacts to the property as well. The review and recommendation itself must be determined on the merits of what is proposed. The recommendation by staff considers the application as submitted and review of the additional information that was provided or clarification that was made by the applicant and the 5 points of criteria that is supported by the Indiana Code and the Marshall County Zoning Ordinance. Those criteria include what was discussed above in the staff report, including general welfare, development standards, ordinance intent, comprehensive plan, and other considerations, including but not limited to natural features, zoning of site and surrounding properties, and traffic generation. After review of the application and the supplementary information, staff recommends denial of the proposed Tamarack Solar Farm as submitted and clarified. The proposed project is occupying unique agricultural ground that is key to supporting the specialty crop sector. Not all agricultural operations and crop production are specifically for traditional crops, such as corn and soybeans, but the growing of seed via well-drained soils and highly managed practices to support the agricultural crop industry as a whole. Other specialty crops require different types of soils to produce quality and efficient amounts of product that are not as successfully produced elsewhere in the county. This is what makes it difficult to broadly cast what soils are and are not suitable for agriculture. It is through the protection of these agricultural grounds under the guidance of the Marshall County Comprehensive Plan, the staff makes the recommendation of denial. An alternate option for the Board of Zoning Appeals could be to approve the project with conditions. The project as submitted and clarified meets or commits to meet the intentions of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan. There would be no expansion of the municipal utilities, and the project as proposed is leased and not owned, given the perspective that there is a sunset on the project, unlike other industrial, commercial, and residential uses, because the land can be returned to highest and best use at that time, whether it be agricultural or otherwise desired. Conditions of approval should include, but not limited to, the completion and approval of the emergency response plan by Culver and Plymouth Fire Departments. The buffering standards shall be increased where the secondary buffering standards match that of the current primary buffering standards, and the primary buffering standards be increased to include a line of at least 6 understory trees per 100 linear feet on the external facing side of the buffer. 3, the existing wildlife corridor between the natural area north of State Road 8 can still traverse south to the Yellow River as it does currently by the creation of a wildlife corridor on Project Parcel 11, which will require the adjustment of the existing fence plan to accommodate a wildlife corridor no less than 100 feet in width, with native plantings and varying tree plantings to promote the use of said wildlife corridor. Number 4, the buffering shall be installed within 18 months of the BZA approval to promote growth of vegetation, to have partially active buffer during construction and advance on growth for the life of the project. Number 5, the project has specific sunset date so that what is suggested as temporary land use, in fact, is actually returned to use by the landowner. Number 6, the soil grading shall be limited to access drives and inverter locations only. Number 7, buffers shall be extended as reviewed by staff. 8, setbacks adjacent to 15764 Thorn Road shall not be less than 500 feet from the property line. And number 9, the applicant shall submit a final site plan should the project move forward with the approval and associated conditions and commitments that have been made, along with the responses that have been provided from the various comment sections from the Planning Commission. The conditions of approval as proposed by the applicant are acceptable for the 4-year approval period and for any tolling during litigation, but there would be no permissible expansions of solar locations. The panel area as submitted will be considered the largest and fullest extent of development. No inverters should move closer to any residence than was shown in the V2 application. Staff could have alternately recommended approval with the above conditions because of a series of property owners who wish to exercise their development potential on their property consistent with what is laid out in the county zoning ordinance to what they deem as the highest and best use of their property rather than using it for crop production. The decision boils down to the comprehensive plan and whether or not which section applies most directly to this project. So now is up for the action requested and board determination. Notwithstanding the information provided by the applicant, information by TRC, recommendation by staff, and public input, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall rule on this case as it considers the following factors. 1, general welfare. The proposal will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Number 2, development standards. The requirements and development standards for the requested use are prescribed by this ordinance will be met. Number 3, ordinance intent. Granting the special use will not be contrary to the general purpose served by this ordinance and will not permanently injure the other property or uses in the same zoning district and vicinity. Number 4, comprehensive plan. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the zoning district in which it is located and the Marshall County Comprehensive Plan. Also, other considerations when considering a special exception, the Board of Zoning Appeals may examine the following items as they relate to the proposed use. 1, topography and other natural site features. Number 2, zoning and site and surrounding properties. Number 3, driveway locations, street access, vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Number 4, parking, including amount, location, and design. Number 5, landscaping, screening, and buffering. Number 6, open space and other site amenities. Number 7, production and hours of any business operations. Number 8, design, placement, architecture, and building material of the structure. Number 9, placement, design, intensity, height, and shielding of lights. Number 10, traffic generation. And 11, general site layout as it relates to its surroundings. When making its determination, the board may approve, deny, table, and may impose conditions or commitments on the proposal. The BZA may impose such reasonable conditions upon its approval as it deems necessary to find that the criteria for approval, or the board may require the owner of the property to make written commitments concerning the use or development of the property as specified under Indiana Code 3674-921, and such commitments recorded in the Marshall County Recorder's Office. Post the BZA's determination, there are 3 items that can happen: an appeal, an expiration, or a termination. An appeal is every decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals shall be subject to review by a court of jurisdiction, writ of certiorari, as prescribed in Indiana Code 3674-1000 series. All appeals should be presented to a court for jurisdiction within 30 days of the board's decision, identified as under Article 9010K in the Marshall County Zoning Ordinance. Expiration, a special exception or variance ceases to be authorized and is expired if an improvement location permit is not pulled in accordance with Article 9, Sections 70, subsection B. And then termination, a variance or special use or special exception may be terminated by the Board of Zoning Appeals under certain grounds as outlined in Article 9, Section 070C. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to the Board of Zoning Appeals for you to take over.
Okay, can anybody hear me? Okay. So we want to call Ethan up with the... Okay, we're ready to call them up.
So you can go ahead and call the applicant up.
Can we get a light on him?
Would we be able to bring the house lights up to 75, please? I have some materials for the board. Can you guys hear me up there? Good.
I can hear you better than I could hear Ty.
All right. So as Ty is handing those out, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone, the board, as well as all the members of the public for being here. I am here with our team, including our internal counsel, Mike Hill. He has a few remarks at the end of my presentation that I'll be providing. I'm also here with a member of our engineering team, our vegetation management team. We are all available should there be questions. I'm going to dive into the presentation. We also have a letter from our attorney that was provided to the BZA members with that packet. So starting off here, I would like to provide a little bit of background on Invenergy. We are the leading privately held renewable and energy developer. We started almost over 20 years ago building natural gas plants, and over the years we have followed the demands of the different customers and utility partners that we work with, has led us to build many different wind, solar, transmission lines, and natural gas plants. It's what brought us here to Indiana to bring a solar project. In terms of our portfolio of solar projects, we've built over 50 different projects. And here in Indiana, we just completed construction on our first project near Frankfort, Indiana. We have 2 projects currently under construction down near Terre Haute. So this is not our first project, and we have actually about 8 other projects in development across various jurisdictions in Indiana. Continuing on here, I think it's always important to begin with what exactly brought us here to Marshall County. First and foremost, this project would not be possible without landowners that have made a decision with their families to participate in this project. And many of them you'll be hearing from tonight, this evening. Second, these projects are only possible when there's access to the electrical grid. Marshall County is quite unique in that it has multiple high voltage transmission lines bisecting the county. In your packet, you'll see there's a map of where exactly those transmission lines are, and these types of projects are good at interconnecting at substations. And that's what actually brought us to the project location near the Burr Oak substation. Well, next, these projects are possible because there is a consistent energy resource. While I know it isn't the sunniest here in north central Indiana, we do know there is a consistent solar resource, and we've actually been collecting data on how much sun we would be able to get and energy for this project. Lastly, and something that I think is increasingly important as energy demand grows here in Indiana, there's going to be a need for more electricity, whether that's because the growing population, electric vehicles, automation, AI. There is a need for projects like this, and currently Indiana is running at an energy deficit in that it needs to import its energy. So projects like these help bring energy closer to the consumer being produced here in Indiana. A little bit of background on this particular project. We began signing our first voluntary leases with landowners back in 2019. Landowners decided to participate for a variety of different reasons, some to diversify their farm operations, sometimes to maintain the land in their family, or even just support retirement. You'll be hearing their different stories here tonight. And then actually once we began signing our first leases, the county implemented a moratorium on solar and adopted a committee to create a solar ordinance. We were not part of that ordinance creation process. The county created the ordinance, and in 2021, we really began advancing the project more because the ordinance, we as a company deemed it was something that we could work within, and we've been following those rules ever since. In 2023, the end of 2023, there were 6 different failed motions at APC and commissioners meeting to enact a solar moratorium, but instead they decided to change the solar ordinance and increase the setbacks. We applied, the initial application was on April 3rd of this year. Following guidance from the Plan Commission staff, we actually ended up amending the ordinance to follow the greater setbacks that were enacted on April 7th. 2024. Lastly, kind of getting to where we are today, there's been multiple rounds of question and responses. We've worked with the TRC, all in an effort to make the best possible project and being compliant with all the different rules. The project, there's over a dozen different participating families. There is 150 megawatts of solar. That would provide energy for roughly 30,000 homes. There is no battery component in this application. We have made an investment of over $3 million planning this project based on the solar ordinance that was set in 2020. In the application packet that you guys were all provided, I'm not going to go through all of it, but just as a summary, we provided a site plan, multiple supporting appendices and exhibits. In there, there's also a table of compliance. That table of compliance shows every different requirement in the solar ordinance on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, it shows exactly where in the application we can show that there is compliance. As noted in the BZA staff report, the Tamarack Solar application has met all of the requirements of the Marshall County ordinance and criteria for approval. I'm going to continue on here, just talk a little bit about the project's construction operations and end of life. The construction period will be 1 to 2 years. operations. The project will be monitored remotely and maintained locally by an operations and maintenance staff. They'll be doing annual training. They'll be members of the community, doing routine equipment inspections and making sure that the project is running at its maximum capacity. At the end of the project's life, the project has a decommissioning agreement. And what that decommissioning agreement does is it obligates us as the applicant, as well as through our lease agreements with landowners, to decommission the project so that the land can go right back into agricultural production or whatever the landowner chooses. I have a little bit of stats there on the amount of jobs created by the project, some of the different community benefits, but what I really want to emphasize is Invenergy's development philosophy. We're a developer, constructor, owner-operator of projects. We have a long-term owner's mindset. We want to be a part of this community. We're interested in working with landowners to understand the community. And in addition to that, we're very committed to working with different community members. In addition to the mailer that the neighbors as the project got or received, we provided an introductory mailer from Invenergy offering the opportunity, any questions to be asked directly to us. We knocked on doors of the 70 different residences that are near the project. We spoke with many of those neighbors, many of them that really didn't have much of an opinion one way or the other about the project. And we continue to be available to answer any questions from you guys or members of the public. Our team is here and we'll be handing out palm cards at the end of the meeting with contact information and some overview of the project. I'm going to wrap up here. I have some additional information here on the engineering and the design technology that we're using, as well as our vegetation plan and our soil management plan. I have a member of my team on our vegetative management science team that is available to be here, answer questions that you guys might have. But in conclusion, we're requesting approval for our application for a solar farm here in Marshall County, the Tamarack Solar Project. And I'm going to hand it over to Mike Hill.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Michael Hill. I'm internal counsel with Invenergy. My address is 1 South Wacker Drive, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. And I'd like to summarize, sorry, is this better? I'm sorry. Yes, it's Michael Hill. And I'd like to summarize by focusing on the question that is before this board tonight by making 3 points. One, fortunately, the question of whether or not to permit solar use within Marshall County is not in front of you. That decision has already been made in the form of the zoning amendment that was approved earlier this year. That was a policy of the county and adopted as an amendment to the zoning. So we're here before you tonight with this specific application. The second point is, Mr. Adley made reference to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a community visioning document that states goals for the community. But where that plan is actually implemented is in the form of the zoning ordinance and the other ordinances of the community. And then third, Mr. Adley correctly identified this, Ethan emphasized this as well. The question before this board is whether or not this application, this project, satisfies the criteria for approval as specified by the zoning ordinance. We submit that it does, with the materials containing the application itself. We also submit that the staff report found that it does as well. And one thing also I want to mention too, and this is just a word of caution. A lot of mention was made of specialty soil, specialty crop production. I'd just like to note that that is not mentioned in the comprehensive plan itself or in the zoning ordinance. It's certainly not a criteria for approval. And I would caution that basing a decision on, say, dictating to private landowners the crop mix that they must grow on their land is a dangerous precedent this board should consider long and hard. So that's it. I'd like to warm up.
Jeff, that would be the 10 minutes. That would be the 10 minutes. That's the 10 minutes. Yes. No, that was the 10 minutes for the proposal.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Could the public hear that?
Right, so your next thing would be the public hearing. The next portion would be the public hearing. Would you like to go to a brief recess? You can ask questions now, yes. Make sure you use a mic and speak into it directly.
Anybody have questions to start with?
I'm going to start out with a question. If you go to Ty's report, it says, after the review of the application and the supplementary information, staff report recommends denial. Who is staff? That would be Ty.
Correct.
So your recommendation was denial for this?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quit asking questions. I can't hear. This is terrible. So we'll go ahead and start the public hearing then. Do I have a motion to open public hearing?
I make a motion to open public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to open public hearing. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The public hearing is now open. We're going to start out with the people that are in favor of it. Are they going to go up to the podium to talk? There's two mics. There's one
two
right here.
mics, one in
and
each
there's one
aisle,
right there.
up towards the front. If you wish to speak, please form an orderly line in front of those.
Okay. State your name and address for the record, please, and then you can talk.
My name is, can you hear me?
Not at all.
Get closer. Turn this on. Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, my name is Ed Ryder. We own property on 14218 Tulip Road. We're one of the families that signed into leases. And I think it's really important that we fix these mics so you can hear what's being said by the attorney from Invenergy. Anyways, I submitted a document to you guys, which it sounds like it's going to be read tonight, but our attorney that's representing the landowners group in terms of property rights couldn't attend because of a prior engagement. So we're going to read back-to-back a condensed version of it that's going to meet the 5-minute allotment that you guys gave us.
Sir,
I represent a group of landowners.
Excuse me, sir. You might have to put your mouth real close to the microphone.
Okay. Jeez. I represent a group of landowners in Marshall County, Indiana. We want to voice our support for the project. We support the project because, 1, we support private property rights. 2, the project will have a positive economic impact on Marshall County. And 3, the project will secure the future of agricultural operations in the county. Therefore, we request that the BZA approve the special exception for the project as presented. We support the private property rights of those who chose to enroll in the project. First, the landowners support the BZA's granting of a special exception because in doing so, the BZA would honor individual property rights. Of course, the decision to participate in the project is entirely voluntary. We have freely chosen to sign up our land for temporary use as a solar farm to create renewable energy for Marshall County. As our founders recognized, private property is the foundation of freedom itself. Thus, through our federal and state constitution, the founders protected property rights, our rights to freely acquire, use, and dispose of property. With the growth of government, however, those rights have been seriously compromised. Property owners are, of course, prohibited from using their property in a way that injures their neighbors. But that injury must be a real thing, not just an interest in looking at a neighbor's cornfield rather than a solar field. In other words, the neighbor also has private property rights, but those rights do not extend to those to the right to look at something specific on a landowner's property. The project has taken steps to protect non-participating landowners' rights, vegetative buffers, landscaping setbacks, erosion control measures, agricultural fencing, and noise restrictions. These measures ensure that each person's private property rights are protected. Indiana's farmers have always produced food, fuel, and fiber for the American economy. Especially crops referenced in the Marshall County staff report require significant investment by the farmer and landowners and involve substantial risk. Landowners are in the best position to decide what types of uses are best supported by their fields. In 2023, 43% of Indiana's corn went into ethanol production. This project is just another way to produce fuel from Indiana farm ground. The project represents a shift from one type of fuel, ethanol, to another, solar. Using the state average means our county used 38,228 acres to produce fuel in the form of ethanol. The project would temporarily use about 1,300 fenced-in acres to produce fuel in the form of solar. This is 0.7% of the total cropland in Marshall County. We believe in the American free market system in which property is privately owned, managed, and operated for profit and individual satisfaction. Any erosion of that right weakens all other rights guaranteed to individuals by the Constitution. Private property rights are foundational to our nation and are critical to ensuring secure and well-managed farms. Acre by acre, farmers and ranchers know their land better than the back of their hands because agricultural producers are best suited to choose the production practices that will work. Give me a break, I got one paragraph left.
BZA.
Let's let him finish.
Okay.
Acre by acre, farmers and ranchers know their land better than the back of their hands because agricultural producers are best suited to choose the production practices that will work best for their land. They must be free to use their land as they see best. The comprehensive plan recognizes the importance of protecting private property rights while also prioritizing the preservation of agricultural land. This project would strike that balance. The project allows landowners to exercise their private property rights and choose to participate in the solar farm while continuing to use the land for additional agricultural production of their choosing for the duration of the lease. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to state your name and address for the record, please?
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening. My name is Lisa Dan. I reside at 1359 Short Drive in Knox, Indiana. I am with the Center for Energy Education, and we did do a workshop in Marshall County last fall. But I just wanted to share a couple of talking points from my position with the Center for Energy Education. Currently, 13 to 16% of Indiana's electricity supply is imported from out of state. With the number of data centers and other large power users throughout the state continuing to come online, that number will increase exponentially over the next several years if we don't invest in ourselves through additional renewable energy opportunities in our communities, which includes diversifying our utility mix. We know that utilities are becoming less reliant on fossil fuels, and as they continue to diversify and reduce their carbon footprint, it is imperative that we become more self-reliant through these renewable opportunities. Another important point to make is the increased assessed valuation these projects create equals decreased property rates for all county residents, not just residents around projects. Many developers look at rural communities with vast open areas of land close to the MISO and PJM power grids, which both happen to cross through Indiana, making Indiana a desirable location for renewable energy projects. As a former economic development director, I work closely with developers interested in locating in Stark County due to its rural nature, flat topography, and proximity to the MISO grid. The first phase of the Mammoth Project, the nation's largest project, a project that will eventually span 13,000 plus acres in Stark and Pulaski counties, has completed construction and will begin commercial operations soon, with phase 2 beginning soon in Pulaski County, construction of phase 2. In addition, construction of phase 2 of the Dunn's Bridge Solar Project is also nearing completion in Stark County, and a third developer just received approval for their permitting, which will lead the way for an additional project in Stark County. These projects are not like any other economic development project. The question is Marshall County open for business? A recent inventory of lost farmland study was done by State Representative Kendall Culp, and it was determined that the majority of farmland taken out of production in Indiana is due to new housing developments and not renewable energy projects. A utility-scale solar project will return the land to better than before at the end of its life, unlike a housing development that will be there forever. In addition, it should be noted that Indiana farmers export over $7.4 billion annually in agricultural commodities to other countries. Solar is compatible also with agriculture. Solar farms are low-impact uses that can safely operate next to neighboring ag operations. In addition, the natural ground cover under and between rows of panels allow the soil to rest and rebuild nutrients just as ag conservation programs recommend, making the land more profitable upon return to ag use. Sheep grazing can also be used for ground maintenance, which is currently happening on the Mammoth Project in Stark County. Pollinators can be added, which also benefit neighboring farmers. At the end of the life of a solar project, the pilings and equipment are easily removed. The land is returned to its original use. Agrivoltaics are another option, which means growing crops under the panels. Landowners and farmers have rights when it comes to leasing their land for these projects. Many landowners and farmers do it to provide for future generations. Many do it to supplement their current incomes. In fact, many family farms have been saved through these economic opportunities. I encourage the BZA to consider approval of the special use permit for each parcel to move forward the Invenergy Tamarack Solar Project in Marshall County. Your approval will promote self-reliance of our energy resources by offering a diverse mix of those resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Kim Ryder. As many of you know me by my maiden name, Kim Thompson.
Address, please.
Yes, we own property at 14118 Tulip Road, Culver. Our farm has been in our family for over 40 years, over 70 years. We signed a lease with Invenergy. Unfortunately, the landowner's attorney, Brianna Schroeder, is out of state attending to a prior commitment she made 7 months ago. However, she has written a letter to this Board of Appeals, and I'm sure you all have a copy of that. My husband began to read a summary of the letter, and I'm going to finish that summary. Number 2, the project will have a positive economic impact on Marshall County. Marshall County will benefit from the economic investment involved in the project. It will help diversify the county tax base to support a wide range of public benefits, including roads, bridges, health services, schools, debt service, and reduced need for revenue from other sources. The project could also be used to lower taxes for the whole county. The comprehensive plan states it is a goal of Marshall County's to promote environmentally friendly agricultural and industrial practice. The plan recognizes that economic development can take many forms. This project would help the county to accomplish this principle because of the positive environmental and economic impact. The project includes an investment of more than $250 million. The project would create more than $56 million in local economic income during construction and would produce almost $5 million in annual economic output during the life of the project. In addition, Invenergy will pay over $23 million in to the school districts. The county would also receive over $10.7 million from the project. The project will also contribute to local libraries, townships, other government services. In all, the project would contribute over just under $40 million in taxes to local taxing districts over the life of the project. Overall, Indiana consumes almost 4 times more energy than the state produces. The project would contribute to the region's electricity capacity. Claims that this energy would only benefit coastal states is a misunderstanding of the bulk electric grid. Developing the project on farmland, the landowners have voluntarily chosen to add, and adding grasses and other cover crops will allow the land to rest and become more productive. Water, fertilizer, pesticide use would be reduced. The project is not unlike federal programs which pay farmers to take acres out of production for conservation purposes. Here, the property will be used to produce clean energy while the soil rests. Landowners could add livestock in a regenerative, rotational grazing pattern to hasten the improvement of the soil health. 3, the project will secure the future of the agricultural operations in the county. Finally, the project will preserve and protect agricultural land for the next generation. The leases give Invenergy the right to install panels to capture solar power for a set period. During this time, the land will be off limits to warehouses, subdivisions, and other sprawling land uses. This protection meets one of Marshall County's most pressing interests set forth in the comprehensive plan: the protection of farmland from development of residential subdivisions in rural Marshall County. At the end of the lease, the project will be decommissioned. The land will be returned to the owners as in a good condition as it is now. Physical equipment will be removed, any impacted drainage will be repaired, cover crops will be planted, and any other impacts will be mitigated. The solar farm will not involve the use of any hazardous materials. The solar farm will not pose a risk to human health or the environment. When the decommissioning ends, the soil will contain increased organic material from its rest from traditional farming. The project serves as a well-funded conservation reserve program for farmland, all the while producing a green domestic renewable energy source. In conclusion, the landowners urge the BZA to grant the special exception for the Tamarack Solar Project as presented. It will provide clean energy and increased income for the landowners, keep taxes low, and strengthen the Marshall County economy. Thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to this board tonight.
Okay, thank you. Next. You'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Benjamin Sharkey, 325 West Walnut Street, Argus, Indiana, 46501. The issue of solar has been a severely divisive topic, not just in our county, but other neighboring counties as well. While some look at it as a simple yes or no to solar, the reality is that it is a much more complex topic. We are not dealing solely with whether or not industrial solar is right for our county. We are also dealing with where the rights of landowners and farmers begin and end. We are dealing with an economic impact either for the better or for the worse. We are dealing with a power supply that is near capacity. I'm not going to come right out and say whether I am for solar or against it. It is a complex situation and requires a complex answer. I can understand the arguments on both sides when it comes to solar specifically. One of my biggest concerns, though, is whether or not this government is going to stand up for the rights of property owners who own their land and pay their property taxes. Will this local government allow our farmers who bust their backsides to make sure we are able to eat, to adjust their business model so they can continue to support their families, or will this government deny them the freedom to do so? We have to remember, farms are not only in place to make sure we have food on our table. They are also a business. Not just that, they are a business and an economy that is based on capitalism, and a number of them are looking to capitalize on land that they own. That is as American can get. Now, since they are a local business, that means that they help support our local economy. By allowing them to utilize their land for solar so they can maximize their financial returns, they will in turn boost our local economy. This could also show businesses that provide well-paying manufacturer jobs who are looking to move into the county that Marshall County is ready and able to meet their energy demands. To me, that would result in a financial win for everyone. The REMC and NIPSCO have both recently mentioned in reports the looming threat of eventual rolling brown and blackouts. Simply put, we are nearing our energy capacity. This is a huge problem. Along with this, I have heard many officials in recent weeks, both local and state, make comments mentioning that there is a needed threshold of renewable energy that the state may be required to reach. These comments also allude to the potential that if these thresholds are not met, then many areas, like ours, could be facing the possibility of eminent domain by the IURC. If that were to occur, the farmers would be forced to sell their land at what is considered the fair market value at the time, and they would be forced to sell. They would lose the opportunity to sell to whom they want at the price they want. They would lose the opportunity for a consistent income stream. We would not have the guaranteed protection of setbacks. Whoever would be running the project would have that control, and that would not be the county. Also, we would very likely see little to no economic benefit. All of that, and we would still end up having solar, but under someone else's control. With this information in mind, we as a community have an opportunity and a choice. We can either take this issue and run with it under our control and under our terms, or we can sit and wait for the choice and control to potentially be taken from us. One final note. Back in July, the commissioners for Elkhart County voted to allow a solar project to move forward. At least one of the commissioners, Brad Rogers, who I served as a corrections officer under and have great respect for, is against industrial solar and still voted to allow the project to go through. He was quoted as saying, "This solar project is ready to be built and the power will now stay local, so we might as well benefit from it." Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Tim McCarthy, 20087 State Road 10, Culver.
What was your name? I didn't catch.
Tim McCarthy.
Okay, sorry.
Today I stand before you to discuss an important opportunity for our community, a solar project that not only aligns with our values, but also serves as a pivotal step forward towards a sustainable future. First and foremost, let's consider the land itself. We know that much of our agricultural land faces challenges, particularly when it comes to low-producing soil. With increasing urban sprawl, we're witnessing a loss of arable land that will never be returned to agricultural use. Instead of succumbing to this reality, we have a chance to repurpose our less productive land for renewable energy. Much of the land my family put into this project is sand. Just to make the ground productive, we need to install expensive center pivots or treat the ground with lots of chemicals and fertilizer. The solar project allows us to utilize acres that may no longer yield significant crops while preserving our valuable agricultural resources for generations to come. Personal choice in land usage is essential, and as stewards of our land, we must make decisions that reflect both our values and our responsibilities. This project protects and diversifies my family's farm while providing an innovative approach to land management. It also allows us to carry on the family legacy while embracing the future. Furthermore, this project will generate income that directly benefits our community. The funds generated will help enhance our local services, supporting roads, schools, health services, and something that's very important to me, the local fire services. Imagine a community where vital resources are bolstered by the very land we choose to develop. This isn't just an investment in energy, it's an investment in our community's well-being. Additionally, let's consider the environmental aspects. Traditional agriculture methods often rely heavily on irrigation, fertilizer, and pesticides, contributing to soil degradation and water pollution. By transitioning to solar energy with native prairie grasses, we allow the land to rest. This means fewer nitrates and fertilizers entering our ecosystems and reduced water usage, benefits that will resonate throughout our environment and community for years to come. Another added benefit is this will make ideal refuges and habitat for quail and pheasants, which have been declining steadily in numbers in Indiana. Lastly, the potential for this area to serve as a pollinator habitat cannot be overlooked. By integrating pollinator-friendly plants around our solar arrays, we can create a thriving ecosystem that supports biodiversity. This aligns with our commitment to protecting the natural world while harnessing renewable energy. In conclusion, supporting this project is more than just a choice about energy, it's about the legacy we leave for future generations. It's about balancing our current needs with our responsibility to the land and community. Let's embrace this opportunity to create a sustainable future, one that honors our roots while lighting the path forward. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you. You would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Joy McCarthy, and I live at 20087 State Road 10, Culver, Indiana. As a landowner, I have researched the pros and cons of solar energy. Solar energy is renewable, sustainable, and abundant. It creates zero harmful emissions while generating a reliable power source. Solar panels gather energy from the sun and convert that energy cleanly into electricity that will be used to power communities. The biggest disadvantage of solar energy is the initial startup cost. However, when you spread that cost over the operational years of both the panels and the solar fields, that cost proves to be a sound investment. As a landowner, putting solar on our marginal land, farm ground allows us to use funds generated from that diversification to reinvest in our operations. These funds will allow us to continue with capital improvements such as bin upgrades, as well as updating our equipment line. Just like every other business, diversification plays a big role in allowing future growth and improvement. That is what solar is in Marshall County, a diversification to be added alongside corn and soybean farming. In addition to our contribution to feeding the world, we will also be helping to provide clean energy for the use of millions that will continue on into the futures of our children, grandchildren, and many generations to come. As a farmer and landowner of Marshall County, I believe I have the right to exercise reasonable autonomy in the same manner as any other landowner, taxpayer, business owner, and voting citizen. Our neighbors should not be able to dictate whether we harvest corn, soybeans, potatoes, or the energy sun on our property, especially when those practices are done in a sustainable and environmentally friendly manner. I thank you for your time in considering my viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. You'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Scott Callentine, 3190 Cottonwood Lane, Bremen, Indiana. I am a representative with the Carpenters Union here in northern Indiana. I represent several carpenters in the county of Marshall County, some of them in attendance here this evening. I am here in support of the solar project being permitted.
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear who you're representing. I apologize.
I'm a representative with the Carpenters Union in northern Indiana, representing several carpenters in Marshall County, some of them in attendance today. I'm here in support of the solar project being permitted for Invenergy and Burr Oak. Carpenters and other trades are performing this work in several surrounding counties. Our tradesmen are highly trained in safety and efficiency in installing these projects. This project will provide many jobs for our carpenters and other tradesmen in this community, local workers who pay taxes and spend their money in Marshall County. It also creates opportunities for our young people looking to start careers in the construction industry. I believe the landowners have rights to lease this land. I believe this may be a good supplement for energy demands in our community. Please keep in mind the large data centers that are under construction in St. Joe County that will require a large amount of electricity to operate. This may mean an increase in utility bills for the residents of the surrounding areas. This solar field may help to ease increases on all of our utility bills. I believe Invenergy has tried to meet all the county's requests and would ask that you consider moving forward with their permit request. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record, ma'am?
Bonnie Broker, 18760 12B Road. My husband and I are landowners and part of the Tamarack Solar Project. This project has been going on for like 5 years. It hasn't been a secret. People have known about it. There's been tons of meetings. My husband and I decided to enroll in this Tamarack Solar Project because of the value that it would bring to the landowners, to our family, to area families, to our neighbors, to our community. The benefits extend beyond our farm. Supporting renewable energy is an investment in the future. We have to come up with an alternative for more energy. Please note that the ground we're discussing is not prime farm ground. It is sand. It needs irrigation. Irrigation costs us a lot of money. And we're coming from a 5-generation family farm. We're not just first-timers. We can all benefit for the production of more energy. This project will improve some of our roads. It will put money and jobs into our community. Wind and solar energy are the cheapest forms of energy to produce. If you look around the community and the area communities, if you drive down the road, wastewater plant has solar panels. All the area schools have solar panels. If they're so bad, why are we putting them at our schools? If they do nothing, why are we putting them up at other businesses? The Reese Theater has solar panels. They wanted to be a role model for clean energy. The community has changed the ordinance, adjusted our setbacks. We've met every one of the new requirements that they've set forth for us. The setbacks are larger, so if you're complaining about how much farm ground is going into this, quit moving the setbacks and making us back it up more. You're the ones wasting the farm ground, not us. And the farmers, when we farm right up to the road. We have people that come in and cut down our corn because there's accidents on the corn, on the corners from the corn, and they can't see. We've carefully considered our decision. We want to enhance our family farm. We want to respect the rights of other people, of our neighbors, and the others around us. We believe that we want to contribute positively to our community. These are personal property rights that we're not harming anyone with. We ask that you vote for the Tamarack Solar Project and for our property rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, I'm John Broker, 18765 12B Road, Culver. As farmers, we are entrusted with the significant responsibility of being good stewards of our land. It's a privilege that allows us to take necessary actions, whether it's clearing fence rows, putting in drainage tile, putting up buildings, building grain bins, or installing irrigation systems. All of these we do without breaking any laws. We have the ability to manage our land as we see fit. However, with this freedom comes responsibilities, and we must care for our land, balancing our immediate needs with long-term viability. The choices we make today will impact not only our farms, but the community and the environment around us. Despite the freedoms we enjoy, there are restrictions that we face, particularly regarding the renewable energy solutions like solar panels. It's baffling that while we can make so many changes to our land without question, pursuing solar energy comes with and something that we can benefit both our farms and the community seems to be met with so much resistance. My wife and I have chosen to enroll in the Tamarack Solar Project because we believe it can benefit everyone, including our neighbors. It isn't just about our farm, it's about making a positive impact on our community, and respecting the rights of landowners, and embracing the long-term benefits. This isn't prime farmland we're talking about, and we're not breaking any laws. Please support the Tamarack Solar Project. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you very good.
My name is Lois Broker, Bullbridge Farms, LLC, 330 East Jefferson Street, Culver, Indiana, 46511. We made a family decision to lease our Centennial Farm, which means we've had this farm for well over 100 years in the family now. which is also in a long-term land trust, which means that we have every intention to protect this land and keep it in the family for generations to come. So we have decided to lease the land to Invenergy, and we did that in 2020. Like so many of you here in this room, on both sides of the issue, you have lived in the Marshall County area for part of your life, and some of you have lived in the Marshall County area all of your life. There has been enormous change in the landscape of our agricultural land, from housing developments to industrial complexes to medical offices to shopping centers, just to name a few. The Tamarack Solar Project is no different in terms of change in land usage, and in fact should not be treated any differently than any of those listed above. For the majority of the people who truly know the area, we remember farmland from Culver to Plymouth. Now there are private homes in every direction, on every road, and throughout the entire county that was once just farmland. These sellers and owners exercise their right to buy and sell property freely with no limitations. Their rights to buy and sell were understood to be a right given to all private citizens. We, as the combined landowners of the Tamarack Solar Project, should be given the same rights to buy, sell, or in this case, lease our land. The Tamarack Project is a long-term lease, but not a permanent lease, and therefore the farmland has the potential to revert back to another farm production, however farming may change over the course of time. While homes and businesses that have replaced what was once farmland oftentimes sits vacant, oftentimes is abandoned. It takes up valuable farmland that may never ever be returned to its original use. So please, I am asking you to give every consideration to allowing these 12 landowners of the Tamarack Solar Project the right to freely exercise their right to do with their property, just as other private citizens have had in the past and no doubt will in the future, with no interference or encumbrance. Thank you.
Thank you. You would state your name and address for the record, please.
John Singleton, 12700 Upus Road, Plymouth. I have lived in Marshall County all my life. I purchased one of my farms from my dad, which him and I farmed together until he retired. Along with my wife, we continued to farm. Later, due to rising equipment prices, we started to rent our land out. I am retiring, and with neither of our sons or our 4 grandkids able to take over at this point in time, we have chosen to lease to Invenergy. We do not only support solar, which is in need for an alternative of fossil fuel, but I am here to stand up for the other 11 landowners and their rights. Each of these families have different and varied reasons for their decision to go with solar. We should be able to decide what is best for our land and our family while following the set ordinances. We want to point out that we are leasing our land, we are not selling out. We are only leasing one parcel, not all of our land. We may be farmers, but we have done research on this topic, asked numerous questions, and had many discussions. We decided to sign with Invenergy. Do I feel all solar companies are on the up and up? No. But Invenergy has been forthcoming, get my page turned here, forthcoming and willing to answer all of our questions, some of them repeatedly, and I feel they are as dedicated to providing clean energy as we are in preserving our land for future generations. We also support the other farmers of Marshall County not involved in solar. Just know, we support your rights to make decisions that are in the best interest of your land and your families. If the county government is trying to take away our landowners' rights, what is to say some other farmers' landowner rights are not next? Over the years, farmers, including us, have complaints about dust, blowing topsoil, irrigations, water supply, loud equipment, crop dusters, equipment driving on the roads, animal smells, running equipment late at night with lights, etc. Now we are getting, they are ugly. We are going to starve with no food. This project will only be just 0.7%, less than 1% of the farm ground in Marshall County. There are also many benefits for the community. This project will create up to 175 jobs. Our county, our schools, libraries, and townships will also benefit. $23.2 million in taxes paid to the schools, 10.7 to Marshall County, 10.7 million, 2.5 million to the townships, and over 3.1 to our local libraries. As you can see, it's not just the landowners who will be benefited from this project, but the people of Marshall County. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Glenn Miller, 17080 9th Road, Plymouth. I'm a landowner and a farmer around the Burr Oak area. I'm a third-generation farmer. I have two nephews that's going to work their way into the farm and take it over. Part of the reasons I have signed up is, one, it's renewable energy. Two, it gives us another source of income for the farm. And really, as you have heard, it's my least productive ground. It's sandy, you need irrigation on it. And it gives stability to my nephews when they take over the farm. And basically, I'd like your support for this, and thank you very much.
Hold on just a minute. Can we ask questions to these people or no? I may? I know, Glenn. I noticed on the maps that they're not putting panels on any of your farms.
No, they're putting a switching station.
Putting a switching station in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm part of.
I was just trying to, I thought it was kind of odd that you would be in favor of it if they're not putting the panels on there. If they're not putting the panels on there, you're not going to get any income.
I'm part of it, just that there's no panels. They want the switching station on there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Paul Amor, 20944 14B Road, Culver. I'm a family member of a participating landowner in the Tamarack Solar Project. Can you still hear me?
Did you say you're a non-participating?
Participating.
You can take that mic out of there, Candy.
We're a small farm that grows corn, soybeans, and cattle. After many considerations, with our family, we took a trip to Ohio to check out one of Energy's projects, and much more consideration, we had decided to put a portion of our property into the Tamarack Solar Project. This wasn't an easy decision that was taken lightly. By participating in the project, it will give us the income to make improvements to our operations so we can continue to keep farming in the future. It also will allow us to keep our family farm in our family and pass it on to the next generations. This project meets all the county's requirements and should be approved. Nobody likes someone telling them what they can do on their own property. We're the same. We wouldn't You wouldn't like it if we told you what you could paint, what color you could paint your home, or if you could put a swimming pool in. We're the same. This is our property. We feel we should have the right to do what we want on our property that meets all of the county's requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Eldon A. Moore, 20650 West 14B Road, Culver. I'm a landowner, I'm an old man. You can't survive on $3.50 corn and have a $20,000 bill you got to pay at the fertilizer place. Think about that for us. I don't have to put no money out for this solar. I get a check every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you just want to give your name and address,
Sure.
or if the kids want to, that's fine.
Sure. My name is Rebecca Furry, and I live at 15882 18B Road in Culver, Indiana. And this is my daughter, Lucy, and she had something that she wanted to say. No, you don't want to? Okay. So I will say something. We live on farmland that was a family farm for many years, and we took it over from another farmer, but we don't farm. And I've lived in Culver for 18 years now. And we go all over the country, and we see solar farms all over the country because of our work. We were recently on our way to the next county over to Winnemac, Mentone, Pulaski County, and we were kind of startled by the amount of solar farms that have grown up and things like that over there. And honestly, one of the reasons that I choose to live here is because it's beautiful. I choose to live here because we can live anywhere, but we choose to live in an area that has farmland that's not destroyed, and we love it because of that. We go to places where there's solar panels and solar farms on top of parking garages, on top of places that are already taken over and have that the land has already been used for something else, and it's not being farmland. It's utilized in a different way, and so we just present that there's other options available to take into consideration as we think about how we do solar for our future, not just for now, but for the future of our children and for the future of our community. And I understand that there's a ton of money involved, and it helps a lot of people in a lot of ways, but just think of the overall as you think about what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. You would state your name and address for the record, please.
I sure will. My name is Gil Standley. I live at 201 North Ohio Street, Culver, Indiana. I do not have a direct financial interest in this project whatsoever. I do have a vested interest, however, in how government functions. I believe one of our most fundamental rights is to own property and to use it as we choose, unless the state has a compelling interest to decide otherwise. It appears from this application that all of the recommended criteria have been met, so that this application should be approved. Thank you, and thank you for volunteering to serve on this board.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. My name is Nicholas Klein. I live at 1001 North Michigan Street, Lakeville, Indiana. I'm a business representative of Local 150, operating engineers. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of my membership and why this project should move forward. Let's start out with the tax revenue. Invergy plans on investing hundreds of millions of dollars into the county, as well as $20 million into the schools. This solar project will provide 175 to 200 good-paying jobs for 18 to 24 months with local tradesmen and women that live in this community or one close by. These tradesmen and women will be paying local taxes, eating at local restaurants, stopping at local gas stations, and shopping at the local grocery stores. Those are all good things for any community. The trades are one of the biggest employers in the county, with 300 to 400 tradesmen and women. Some of these men and women live in Marshall County that will be working on this project. This is a project that they can work in their own community and not have to travel to provide for their families. I believe landowners should have the ability to produce whatever they want on their land, if it's whether corn, soybeans, or wheat, or even energy. Whether we choose to lease their property or produce agricultural energy or produce for customers to utilize in their daily lives. Public officials should should make all opportunities to ensure freedoms to do what they choose with their own land. As Americans, we also should have the freedom to choose or lease our property. This is something that we should all do and have the choice as citizens and landowners. We should not be restricted or regulated or deterred from any private sector of business by overreaching legislation that makes away from any citizen to choose what they want to do with our land. Thank you for your time this night.
Thank you. Ma'am, can we take a break? You guys want to take a break? A 10-minute break?
You can take a brief recess, yes.
It's 8 o'clock. We're going to quit at 9:30, so let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at
So you have
15
8:06 on the clock, and you would reconvene at 8:16 to... It's 8:06, and you'll begin again at 8:16.
Okay. 8:16, we'll reconvene.
admit, you guys all went to the left, I went to the right, it's real close. Just move the gate. Yeah. Just move the gate a little bit, it was right there. So we went all the way around. Oh, no. Although the line was building up pretty high by my left. Oh, my God. No paper towel, so obviously it was the pant leg thing. But in you've sold your business, you're doing your ESP, right? Did you get it? None of my business. No, it's none of my business. Sorry about that. When I retired from where I was at, I still get a check. Matt, you good? Ready? Yeah. We're ready. He's walking in right now. That's none of my business. I'm sorry. I don't get a check too. I just paid as a consultant. That's what it's over. It's almost 4. I don't know how long they're going to keep paying, but mine's little dollars. They paid me for almost a full year, full salary when I left, and then it's $1,500 a month until they decide we don't want to do it anymore. I had a contract for 2 years.
If you could please begin making your way back to your seats so we could get back underway for the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, are you ready? Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Liliana Turner, 16834 7th Road, Plymouth, Indiana. As a student and resident in Marshall County, I am here in support of solar energy. I think solar farming is important for my future and for the health of the earth by limiting bad emissions. Solar projects also create jobs for many, considering my parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd state your name and address for the record.
My name is Frank Lucas with the Foundation for Fair Contracting, 22095 Elkhart, Indiana. Before I was this, I was a 16-year Elkhart County Commissioner, so I understand what you're doing, and I'm just with this company for the last 2 years. So I'm just to explain a little what we went through as what you guys are going through, and how we came to our conclusion to pass our ordinance to allow our first solar farm to go through. Like we was mentioned, we have a very large energy deficit in northern Indiana especially. It's only going to get worse over the years to come. And to be able to attract new businesses to our area, we need to improve our energy production. Solar is the cheapest and cleanest form of energy available. And when considering our solar project in Elkhart, we kept coming back to just one conclusion. The private property rights are the most important rights in this whole decision. Landowners have every right to do what they want to see best for their property. That's how we came to our conclusion, and that's why we ended up passing it. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Sir, if you would state your name and address for the record.
Max Warren, 12660 Rose Road, Plymouth. This evening I am here to express my support for the Tamarack Solar Project proposed in Marshall County. As a community resident, this project presents an exciting opportunity for our county to embrace renewable energy while generating significant economic benefits. The Tamarack Solar Project will contribute to a more sustainable energy future and bring immediate positive impacts to our local economy. It will create construction jobs, increase demands for local services, and provide ongoing employment opportunities for maintenance and operations. Furthermore, the additional tax revenue generated from the project will help fund vital services in our community, such as schools, emergency services, and infrastructure improvements. In addition to the direct economic benefits, Tamarack Solar will enhance our county's reputation as a forward-thinking, environmentally responsible community that values economic growth and sustainability. I respectfully urge you to approve the Tamarack Solar Project. It promises to be a valuable asset to Marshall County, not just now, but for generations to come. Thank you for your time and consideration in reviewing my perspective on this matter. I appreciate the important role you play in making decisions that will shape the future of our community.
Max, did you say you did it personally or through your business? Through the
Pardon?
business? Did you, are you here for just for yourself?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jeff Wojcik. My address is 20530 State Road 8. I live on the corner, northwest corner of Upas and 8. The southwest corner, they plan on putting solar panels. Now that's right straight out my kitchen window. I would be very happy to see solar panels out there than I would see a subdivision. That ground has been like that for over 34 years that I've been is sand. There's nothing else you can raise on there but hay or some sort of cover crop. You can't put corn or beans and get anything out of it. Solar, it would be the best thing for that. Not only that, I have also heard that it drops your property taxes. Well, I checked with Mr. Paul. My property taxes being directly across the road would drop 1%, maybe 2% for 1 year, and they'll be right back where they were. Now, they say these people are coming in, they're going to do something with our roads. Seems West Township, the county has no use for any roads out there. Because if you ever went south on Upas from 8 with your windows down at 30 mile an hour on a nice sunny day, you will never do it again. Because it takes 5 minutes for the cloud bank to clear the ground. Now why, if they're going to come in and fix the roads, since our county has no money to fix it, I'm all for it. The only gripe I got is I haven't figured out how to get an extension cord under the road over to that field. But I'm all for it, and I'm right there right in front of it.
Thanks, Jeff. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Joanne Callahan, 12750 Tamarack in Culver, 46511. At almost the exact same time, Invenergy started to plan the Tamarack Solar Project. My husband and I purchased property at the corner of Tamarack and 8. It's been on the screen numerous times here tonight. We will have a solar farm to our west and our south if this goes through. We spent 3.5 years planning and building our home, and we are in the process of completing the work to have our forest and prairie designated protected as defined by the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. So we really do care about that land, and we are putting a significant amount of money in to get the forest back to the place where it should be. We chose to move here to escape urban sprawl, and we loved the idea of being surrounded by cornfields. Of course, we weren't thrilled when we learned the cornfields we loved looking at would become solar. When we realized this project was being planned, I tracked down Ethan Sternberg at Invenergy. I went through numerous minutes of your meetings, and I reached out to Ethan, and within 24 hours, Ethan and his team were on a Zoom call with me listening to my concerns. That's pretty unusual for a business. I was impressed with their willingness to listen and share ideas on how my concerns could be addressed. So what I'd like to encourage folks that will probably be talking in a little bit, if you have questions or concerns, I strongly encourage you to reach out to Ethan and his team at Invenergy. I think a lot of people that live very close to these areas received a letter. I talked to Ethan and his team before that was sent to me, but it wasn't that difficult to track him down. Thank you.
Can you tell me where your house was again? I didn't catch it.
I'm right at the corner of 8 and Tamarack, hence the Tamarack Solar Energy.
Which corn would it be? North, south, east, west?
Most people here might remember it as the old golf course from way back when.
Okay. Thank you. State your name and address for record, please.
Tyler Waddle, first-time caller, long-time listener. 6719 Michigan Road, Plymouth, Indiana. I'm all for it. You know, out of high school, I worked for a few farmers. One, he had quite a bit of acreage before, so I know what it takes for these guys to, you know, raise for their families and future families and crop growth and all that stuff. So I get it when times get hard, but I put the respect off to the farmers, and I believe in rights and freedom. So if they want to do this with their land, they've obviously looked into it. You know, we've trusted them for many years to put the chemical and all this other stuff in the ground. We've never raised an issue. Why are we raising an issue now over a solar panel? You know, me, I'm getting kind of tired of looking at corn sometimes. You know, so go past, see a solar panel, what they do. So I'm all for it. You know, I believe in rights, and I think they should have at least a good say in it.
Okay, thank you. If you would state your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Luana Broker Singleton, and I am a participating landowner who is part of the Tamarack Solar Project, along with my husband John, who spoke earlier. I really don't have a lot to say. I think we've covered it. You know why we're doing it. I think you should support us. In addition to the many speakers here who have voiced their support for the project, the individual letters that have already been submitted by Ty Adley, you guys have. I would like to submit 92 other ones.
John, you want to state your name and address for the record?
John Grolick, President of the County Fire Association here in Marshall County. Following the ordinance that has been set out by the county, one of the stipulations is that the fire service meets with the proposed company. We have on multiple occasions. They've even attended one of our county fire meetings. One of the other things that's come up in some of the discussions previously is the concern for water supply. When we ask for abundance of water hydrants at locations, we did some research, talked to one of our well drillers in the county, and assured me that we have more than enough water in the aquifer here in our county. He assured me that we have a golf course in this county that puts 1 million gallons a day on their golf course. So he said, I don't think you're going to affect your water source. One of the other things that was concerned was the runoff in the event there was a fire and water was used. I spoke with the company out of Elkhart. They assured me that they can come down and handle any situation we have. Their goal is to assess the runoff, check the pH, and neutralize that. So I think those things, along with, I think some months ago, there was a gentleman that talked about the toxic fumes from one of the fires that was had, I think, in Arizona. Those are typical products of combustion that firefighters deal with on a daily basis on structure fires. So I think in the big scheme of things, that's a fire that we normally deal with in the fire service. So with those issues, that's what I wanted to share. Those are facts. Thank you.
John, I got a question.
Sure.
We've known each other 40 years. If we don't have the batteries, we don't have the solar, we don't have to train the firemen, we don't have to do this. Since you're back in the fire service, I was on the fire department, I don't understand why you are for it. Can you kind of tell me something a little more along that lines? To me, it would seem that if we didn't have it here, we wouldn't have to have the manpower, we wouldn't have to have all the volunteers. So can you tell me a little more about that?
I support the theory. I'm not necessarily for or against it. I believe these folks have a right to their property. But I think more importantly, part of the county ordinance is that the fire service is involved in that process. And that's what I've done. The fire service trains every day. And it doesn't matter if it's electric vehicles or electric scooters that we're seeing now spontaneously erupt, your electric drills that have lithium batteries. If you buy a cheap battery out of China, you're going to have problems. New York City passed an ordinance. So I think it's one of those things that we need to educate ourselves. The fire service is starting to do that, and we're prepared for whatever situation presents us.
Okay, thanks. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Don Fox, 301 North Shore Lane, Culver, Indiana. So while I'm a member of the Marshall County Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors and a member of our local plan commission, my comments about solar, which I favor, are my own personal comments. I think the special use application for the Tamarack project should be approved, and several of the conditions in the report should be dropped. I think it's important to know that Indiana law on solar limits what the local governments can do, much more than it limits us in our plan commission roles in other respects. For example, the Indiana Code provides that local government cannot take any action that has the effect of unreasonably restricting the use of solar energy systems. And it can impose only restrictions to protect public health and safety, or other restrictions that do not significantly increase the cost of the system or restrict its efficiency. Whether you and I favor solar or not is not relevant, nor is a basis on which you can cast your vote. We can only do that as officials who've taken an oath to support Indiana law that the law allows us to do. So our considerations for solar are very limited. First of all, in the BZA report, at pages 11 and 12, one option presented for you is to simply deny the special use application for, quote, protection of agricultural grounds. However admirable that is, that's not one of the conditions that the Indiana law allows us to consider when we're approving or disapproving solar projects. It's also worth highlighting, as we've heard, that the Tamarack project involves less than 1% of the nearly 200,000 acres of farmland that we have in our county. The alternative recommendation in pages 12 and 13 is to approve the project, but with special uses or special conditions. But again, our discretion is limited to those things that involve public health and safety and which don't increase significantly the cost of the system. The first recommendation is that the Culver and Plymouth Fire Departments provide you all with a report. It's designating how they would respond to emergencies. First of all, I'm not sure that whether it's the BZA or the Plan Commission in Culver or anyplace else, that we can actually require another department of government to produce a report for us. Second of all, it's conditioning the right of property owners on what they can do with their property under an ordinance, which is the law, on that report being produced. And lastly, I think we've got our answer. The fire departments can handle any circumstances that come up with either the Tamarack project or battery storage, which is not before us tonight. There's a second condition of creating a 100-foot wildlife corridor. I'm all for this, but it's not a criteria that I think Indiana law allows us to consider in terms of whether we are going to approve a project on solar or not, because of the limited conditions or circumstances we can consider. Fourth condition, about installing buffering 18 months within 18 months of BZA approval. I've never seen a major construction project where buffering had to be installed before construction was completed. So I think it makes sense that it's certainly installed afterwards, and that seems to be a condition that the developers are all for themselves in their plan, but it does seem unreasonable and frankly a way to frustrate the project to require them to install the buffering before they even break ground. There's a sixth condition, limiting grading to driveways and inverter sites only. This is not a condition that's imposed on the present landowners as farmers. They could grade as they needed to. for drainage or other purposes. This would also probably preclude the developers from installing panels on some of the land that they have leased and that the farmers actually plan for them to install land on. At page 12 of the report, Mr. Adley, the county plan director, who I have a great deal of respect for his expertise and his knowledge of the planning process, says that this should be based on the comprehensive plan. I think the comprehensive plan is a good guide, has been mentioned, but again, I have to disagree with his conclusion that your vote is determined by the plan. It's determined by Indiana statute, which again limits our discretion as people who volunteer to serve on these bodies. Lastly, I would say that even if we did have more discretion in this area than the Indiana law gives us, that denying the special use. Thank you.
Do you have much more?
What's that?
Do you have much more?
My last point was simply the economic impact on the county
Can you make it quick?
and the message that it sends to other high-tech industries that might choose to locate here near the electrical grid if the court's denied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else to speak in favor? No one? Okay, now we'll do the people that want to speak opposed to it. This mic over here is working really well. I don't know if that one will work as well. We can hear really good here. If that one doesn't, if you can switch over, it'd be great.
Yeah, it's working.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Julia Baxter. The address is 16787 18B Road. I represent the third generation of Baxters in this county and also represent my children, would be the fourth generation, and their children, the fifth generation. We plan to stay here, we hope, as long as the county just doesn't turn itself into what I'd call an electrical generator. In other words, just solar panels everywhere. I think one of the fundamentals of tonight that you need to consider is that we're not just talking about Live Energy and Tamarack Solar Project. This is the toe in the door. And once the door is open, there are many other farmlands that are waiting to see what happens here. Maybe they've leased it, maybe they haven't. And I believe my fear and many others is that Marshall County will just turn into just a ton of solar panels. It'll be a fundamental, complete change of who and what Marshall County is. And that's a great concern. The hearing tonight, pretty upsetting to listen to 2 hours of, I hate to say it, but brainwashing. I feel like I'm hearing the words that the solar construction companies have indoctrinated into farmers, landowners. These are good people, but they are listening to promises that I'm not sure are going to be kept. One of the things I just can't believe is numerous times we're being led to believe that Marshall County has a tremendous amount of unproductive land. Well, that's not what I see when I'm around. I see very productive crops. This is food. I consider it food. And if I weigh food and electricity, yeah, they're both important, but I think food trumps electricity. I also believe that solar energy and wind energy are really dead sources of energy. I think you need to be very careful. If you could just give it a little bit longer, I think you'll find that there's going to be some much better ways of producing energy 24/7. If you think about it, solar energy is only when you have sunlight. It's not 24/7, is it? It's only when you have sunlight. And the applicant today actually admitted that northern Indiana is not the best source of solar. Now, logically, what I think of is if the area that I'm using for solar collection is not very good, then that means I have to have more panels collecting the resource. So think about that. When we say more panels, that's more land. And that goes back to what I said originally. I just don't want to turn Marshall County into nothing but mirrors and metal. Some of the things I heard as well today was, oh, this is only temporary. You know, we're keeping our land, we're only leasing it, and then they'll decommission it. I've done a lot of reading myself, and decommissioning is very questionable. There's many reasons why the land may not be able to go to productive ag land for a long time. Okay, last thing is please deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sir, state your name and address for the record.
Okay, there we go. Ty or Derek, before I start, could you pass out the binders that I gave you earlier? And I guess while he's doing that, just to keep things moving, my name is Jason Kuchme. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Snyder, Morgan, and Kuchme, 4211 Clubview Drive, Fort Wayne. And I represent the concerned citizens of Marshall County against solar. That group includes a number of property owners in the county, some of whom would be adjacent to the proposed project. And I've been asked to come here tonight to speak against Tamarack Solar's application for special exception for what is an industrial solar operation. Since my time is limited to 5 minutes, I do have some others that are going to follow behind me in 5-minute increments so they can complete my statement just to ensure everything we have to say is in the record. By way of background, I've been heavily involved in solar issues for the past several years in probably about 25 counties in Indiana, including Bartholomew, Pulaski, Elkhart, Rush, Fayette, Howard, Porter, Delaware, Wabash, and many others. So I've seen a lot of zoning ordinances, I've seen a lot of solar applications, I've heard a lot of arguments, and importantly, I've also seen what industrial solar can do to a community, not the least of which is division among the residents, a loss of jobs, and the removal of many thousands of acres of productive farmland. You know, one of these projects alone, they typically utilize thousands of acres with hundreds of thousands of these giant panels. You've got the substations, the cables, the inverters, and everything else that goes into it. These are industrial utility plants that can change the face of a county long term, especially since once you approve one of these, you know, in comes the next one. Then comes phase 2, then comes phase 3. You know, one recurring theme that I see in counties throughout Indiana, and we've heard plenty tonight, are leaseholders arguing that they have the right to do whatever they want with their property. It's not that simple, as you know, and that's why we have a zoning ordinance. A zoning ordinance is there to separate incompatible uses and to put restrictions on certain developments in order to minimize the impacts of those developments on neighboring properties. And the impacts of industrial solar are significant. And that is why you have to consider a number of different criteria when you decide whether to approve this application tonight. And that's why Tamarack Solar's application cannot be approved if even just one of those elements is not established. Among other things, those criteria for approval require that the proposal not be injurious to other property in the vicinity. And over the last several years, I've gathered and learned a lot of information regarding some of the downsides of these projects. And studies do show that industrial solar utilities will negatively impact neighboring property values. And that negative impact is generally seen when you get within 3 miles and closer. And then obviously the greater, the closer the properties are and the bigger the development is, the more negative the impact will be. And while studies support a negative impact on property values, you don't need a study to confirm the obvious. People don't want to live next door to a utility. They don't want to look out their windows and stare at thousands of solar panels. People move out to the country typically for a reason. And if you live near solar and if you list your house for sale and nobody wants to view it or nobody wants to make you an offer, you better believe that that's a negative impact on your value. There's no market, and that's what's happening in Indiana. In tab 1 on the binder that we've given you, I've included statements from brokers, real estate brokers in Indiana confirming their client experiences and other communications, and those documents confirm what I just said. They show examples of people refusing to view, canceling viewings, and things of that nature. Also in tab 1, there's an excerpt from an Indiana Court of Appeals decision regarding the Mammoth Solar Project. And that decision, the Court of Appeals they noted a finding that was made by the Pulaski County BZA that it is undeniable and unavoidable that a significant number of the 220 homes within 1 mile of the proposed site would see a decrease in property values. Now, I've seen solar companies, they try to argue the contrary. Sometimes they say, well, there's no harm. I've heard some suggest that the values will even go up. But you always need to look carefully at their data. For example, sometimes their data actually includes sales where it was the solar company that purchased the neighboring property for an increased price. Normal folks don't want to live near these projects. Tab 2 in your binder contains a summary by an MAI appraiser of several peer-reviewed studies regarding the impact of industrial solar on neighboring property values. Those studies include several different universities, and across the board, those studies confirm what the local realtors also found, which is that there is a negative impact on property values.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Ehrlich. Address is 217 West, 100 North, Winnemac, Indiana, which is in Pulaski County. Tab 3 contains slides from a recent BZA hearing in Bartholomew County on a solar application. Jeff Hillicord, a real estate broker in Columbus, Indiana, reviewed the report prepared by Kirkland Appraisers, which is basically the same Kirkland report given to you by Tamarack Solar. When Mr. Hillicord spoke, he confirmed that Kirkland's report does not paint an accurate picture of the studies he references and relies upon for his conclusions. For example, Kirkland states that a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study found 1.5% impact within 1 mile of a solar farm as compared to homes 2 to 4 miles from solar farms. What Kirkland neglected to say is that the same report stated for homes within a half mile of a large-scale solar project compared to homes 2 to 4 miles away. They found a reduction in home sale prices in Minnesota, which is a 4% reduction, North Carolina, a 5.8% reduction, and New Jersey, a 5.6% reduction. That same study also stated that their results suggest that there are adverse property value impacts for homes very close to industrial solar farm and those predominantly in rural agricultural settings surrounded by large projects, specifically in rural areas where the solar project displaces agricultural land uses and larger. That is just what we're talking about tonight. Kirkland's report also references postdoctoral research by Nini, and I'm going to slaughter this, Abishi,
entitled Utility Scale Solar Farms and Agriculture Land Values. But Kirkland fails to reference her 2019 doctoral thesis entitled Solar Farms and Residential Values in North Carolina, where she analyzed 15,935 transactions and concluded that the construction of a solar farm decreases property values of houses located within 1 mile of a solar farm by 8.7%. The effect increases to 12.5% if the homes are within a half mile. There are many other examples of the Kirkland report cherry-picking favorable statements and disregarding statements and conclusions, finding a negative impact. And a true evaluation of Kirkland's own sources support a negative impact. Also, when you put these solar utilities in ag districts, they destroy the rural character and take important farm ground out of operation. Adequate farmland is critical to our nation's food supply, and these solar utilities eat up vast amounts of land. That cannot be disputed. And I am told it can take generations to recover fertility, if ever. It is not simply the case of pulling the panels out in 30 years and pretending like the project never happened. Tab 4 in your binder includes photos of a project being constructed in Indiana that I randomly stumbled across while driving one day. Look at the industrial nature of the project. Look what it is doing to the farmland. Look at the view. The destruction of the rural nature. Look at the substation. Just ask yourself, who would want to live next to this? To be surrounded by this? To literally have an industrial utility in your backyard. And these industrial solar developments don't really benefit local communities as often suggested. Electricity is sold to the grid and sent off to who knows where. It does not necessarily stay local. Solar companies' own experts in cases I have been involved with have admitted their projects will result in a net loss of jobs in the counties where located. Once up and running, there might be only a few new jobs associated with that utility. And on the other side of the equation, taking large amounts of farmland out of operation results in significant job loss, among other things. Less farmland equals less sales, less seed, less fuel, less labor, less taxes, etc. These losses are significant to a community and far outweigh any perceived benefit.
Time.
They're all together. Go ahead. State you're with them too?
Yes, I am.
Let's go ahead and finish, you guys.
All right, I'm Gail Lambert, 3343 North 700 West, Winnemac, Indiana. I have several thousand acres of solar leased 3 miles or less from my home. Tab 5. In the binder is a study done by a Michigan State University professor on a proposed solar project in Indiana. That document confirms what I just said, showing the negative, direct, indirect, and induced effects of these developments in the millions of dollars. Another requirement for approval of a special exception is that the project must be consistent with Marshall County's comprehensive plan. Others will address the specific inconsistencies with the comprehensive plan in more detail. But I would note that the comprehensive plan serves an important role and is the guide for future development in the county. It tells you what the county wants to see, where, and why. Tab 6 is a copy of the staff report on Tamarac's Solar's application. As reflected in the staff report, the planning staff found that Tamarac's project is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend its denial. I've also seen many other counties deny special exception applications on solar projects for this exact reason. Most recently, in Decatur and Bartholomew counties. This element simply cannot be satisfied by Tamarack Solar. Before Tamarack's application can properly be approved, they also require to show that the requirements and development standards established by the zoning ordinance will be met. One of these requirements is a decommissioning agreement approved by the commissioners. As you may be aware, yesterday, the Marshall County Council filed a lawsuit against the commissioners and Tamarack in connection with a decommissioning plan purportedly approved by a 2-0 vote. I say purportedly because the lawsuit alleges that Commissioner Overmeyer has a conflict of interest, would benefit financially, and improperly voted to approve. A copy of the lawsuit and a conflict of interest disclosure form signed by Commissioner Overmeyer are included at tab 7 of the binder. If Commissioner Overmeyer's vote is disregarded, there are not sufficient votes to approve the decommissioning plan. That lawsuit certainly casts doubt over Tamarack's ability to satisfy the elements for approval of the special exception, and I imagine any approval would be challenged similarly. Not only does Tamarack not meet the requirements for approval of a special exception, but its application improperly requests variances from the existing ordinance requirements. For example, Tamarack is seeking open-ended deadlines and the ability to make future unspecified changes to the location of the infrastructure different from the site plan, and without approval from the county, and without consideration on the impact on surrounding properties. To be clear, this board cannot grant a variance as condition on a special exception approval. A variance is a legally distinct request from different standards to be met and a different application to be filed. Tab 8 includes the applicable ordinance provisions for variances and includes a sample application. There is no dispute that Tamarack never filed a variance application, let alone an application that included the materials required by your ordinance. Further, the public notice for tonight's hearing, also included at tab 8, only states that a special exception is being considered, not a variance request. This board cannot approve something that is not the subject of the notice, and this board cannot legally approve any variance tonight, certainly not as a special exception condition.
Time.
Hold on a minute. Are you with them?
Mm-hmm.
This lady is? Yes. Does anybody mind if I go ahead and do the whole group? Let's go ahead and finish the group. Thank you. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Bonnie Mevis. Bonnie Mevis, 20364 West 15th Road, Culver, Indiana. In continuation here, I would like to also note that even if a variance application was filed, the required elements are not met. For example, there is no practical difficulty in the use of the property, and the situations Tamarack is requesting are self-imposed. In addition to what has been discussed tonight, I would also like to share what Invenergy, the company behind this development, did in Madison County. In Madison County, Invenergy initially secured BZA approval, but realized it would not meet the required deadline. The BZA refused Invenergy's request to extend the deadline. Invenergy then filed an action with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission in an effort to take away county control over the solar project. Thankfully, that effort was rejected, and the rejection was affirmed by the Indiana Court of Appeals. A copy of that court decision is included at tab 9 of the binder. A similar effort to remove local control was seen in Spencer County, where an approved project was sold to a public utility which allowed the avoidance of local control. The zoning administrator in Spencer County said they were told that as a public utility, the solar development no longer had to conform to the county's conditions or jurisdiction. The zoning administrator said they built that project however they wanted, and said they have dealt with major erosion, drainage issues, mud on the roads and highways, and numerous complaints from the community. Will Invenergy try to go to the public utility route in Marshall County? Will it try to avoid the protections in Marshall County's ordinance? That's a lot of risk for a project that does not meet your ordinance requirements, where a portion of the project is alleged to be tainted by a commissioner's conflict of interest, where the proper procedure had not been followed, and where the planning department concluded that the proposed development is contrary to the comprehensive plan. For all of these reasons, we ask that you please vote no and reject Tamarack Solar application. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all, your group?
I'm the end one.
Hold on, just, what's that?
I'm the last part of them.
You are the last part of them? Go ahead. State your name and address.
Judy Ack, 16161 18th Road, Culver. I would like to thank the people up there that used our book that we put together for you while we were talking. I encourage the rest of you to look at the book that we put together. It's got good information in it, and I hope that you will vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead.
This is a good mic, yeah. My name is Jesse Bohannon. I'm the president of the Marshall County Council. On Tuesday, I was elected to replace Commissioner Overmeyer on the Board of Commissioners January 1st. They stole my thunder because I was coming to tell you that on October the 10th, the County Council unanimously directed me to file suit against the commissioners because of the corrupt process that we've witnessed. It is my expectation that a judge will uphold our claim and will execute an injunction against the decommissioning agreement and against the solar ordinance. And so the reason that I'd like to encourage you guys to reject this application tonight is we could have a real mess on our hands if we grant these folks a variance, if we grant them a building permit, and then a judge vacates the ordinance and the decommissioning agreement. So I'd just like you to keep that in mind, and please reject the application.
Who wants to go next? You want to go next? Go ahead, sir. State your name and address.
Hi, I'm Joe Crozel. I live at 20804 State Road 8. I'm about 200 yards from the Upus Road array when they put it up. I've looked at all these other arrays, like the Mammoth array and the other array over by Saint Pierre. When you drive by, you don't see trees and things like that. You see the solar panels. You see the arrays out in the fields. They're in no hurry to put this, and that may be different with these guys, but they're in no hurry to hide this from view. There's no more cornfields, there's no more green, it's just panels everywhere. Now, I've heard them talk about employment opportunities, I've heard them talk about all the construction jobs. So construction phase is only 2 years. That's 175 employees, they said. Is there any guarantee those are gonna be from Marshall County? Is there any guarantee they're even gonna be from Indiana? Then, I got a letter tonight I opened up from them stating that during the operational phase, and maybe this is a misprint, they only have 2 employees. 2. That's not a lot of jobs from Marshall County. Now, they talked a lot about property rights. And as a property owner, it's important to me to have my individual property rights recognized. And I'm happy for these 12 landowners that they can maybe cut this deal and secure their family and their future and make a lot of money. But I don't want it at the expense of my property and my property value. And you can look online and you can find places that says, oh yeah, it doesn't affect property values. I think pretty much everyone here can say they don't want to live down the road from one of these. If nobody wants to buy my property, then it obviously doesn't have a very good value, does it? So I asked the commission too, or the zoning board, would you want to buy a house next to a solar panel farm? Would anybody else here? No. That has a lot to say about our property values. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you for talking.
You'll go ahead, Nicole.
Nicole Cox, Marshall County Council. And I'm just going to throw some other stuff apart from what I wrote down, because I own an 18-panel in-ground solar. We put it in 2021 because times were pretty crazy and we needed a way to flush our toilets in the country. I will tell you that weeds grow underneath my 18 panels and my chickens use it to dust bathe. So when they talk about all these things that they're going to do and grow underneath, I call bull crap. If I had to do it again, I would not do it. I highly don't recommend. Now, it is nice when REMC decides to flash on us regularly. We do have a little bit of light and we can flush our toilets. But it does not produce what we were promised. And promptly after, within a year, they changed names. And then within 6 months, they filed bankruptcy and left us high and dry trying to figure out to find someone who could control, because you have to have internet access and they actually control your panels. We finally found someone, and all of the guarantees and all the promises were not fulfilled. Second of all, I am in North Township, and those that stated that this is a toe-in is absolutely correct, because farmers around me in North Township, one of our largest farmers said he's had over 5 different companies come to him asking for leases on his property. So we let one in, we're going to let all sorts of them come in. Okay, so since I'm a county councilwoman, I have insight to information that a lot of people do not have. I'm assuming that each of you on the BZA have received a copy and reviewed the decommissioning agreement, the road use agreement, and the economic development agreement for Tamarack Solar that was signed by 2 of our commissioners, one with a conflict of interest, on September 16th, 2024. We reviewed the commissioner meeting video footage starting in March 18th, 2024, when the road and decommissioning agreement was first mentioned by Jim Clevenger in his attorney report. There was no mention of an EDA, an economic development agreement, until September 16th, 2024. At the commissioners meeting, Barnes and Thornburg, attorney Hannah Clennigan, presentation of the 3 agreements, on which she says, we have been working extensively with Mr. Clevenger. From the March meetings, when it was brought up to hire an attorney with expertise in negotiating road and decommissioning agreements for the county, right up through that September 3rd meeting, when Rick Hall reported specifically on the imminent completion of the road and decommissioning agreements, an economic development agreement was neither discussed or even mentioned in passing. Mrs. Clennigan gave the commissioners and the auditor the 3 agreements ready to be signed right away as a resolution to be passed with 1 vote rather than 3 separate agreement votes. The EDA involves a pilot payment and minimum assessed value of the property. The pilot payment, as stated in the EDA, is payments in lieu of taxes. This appears to be added since the county council made it clear in a public meeting that we do not support a tax abatement for industrial solar. The county council should have been informed and involved in negotiating the terms of an EDA with Tamarack Solar and Venergy. The state specifically assigns oversight of the county's fiscal matters to the county council. 2 commissioners voted and it passed all 3 agreements. The county council received a copy the next day when we requested it. I'll also add that both the EDA and the decommissioning agreement, it is stated that Tamarack Solar LLC, quote, may assign or transfer this agreement in whole or part to any or all of its rights, interests, and obligations under this agreement to a public utility or any other company or other entity. It is stated in both the EDA and the decommissioning that they can sell to a public entity. In the state of Indiana, public utilities can acquire land via eminent domain under Indiana Code 32-24-15.9. The county received an invoice from Barnes and Thornburg in January 2024 in the amount of $2,547 for work that they did in July and August in 2023. It states they had a phone conversation with Mr. Clevenger. Mr. Hall, and here's the invoice, but I get access to it, that public does not, made recommendations for edits to Marshall County's solar ordinance using comparisons to other counties' solar ordinances and state default standards. During this time, amendments for our solar ordinance were being considered by the Plan Commission. We couldn't find a letter of engagement. We didn't see a public meeting that the Plan Commission or the commissioners voted to have Mr. Hall consult on the solar ordinance. Why was the county attorney involved in discussions with Mr. Hall about the solar ordinance when the Plan Commission has their own attorney, Mr. Jones? Was the Plan Commission aware that Mr. Hall was working on the ordinance?
Time.
Why was the hiring of Barnes and Thornburg never discussed and voted on in a public meeting? Please table or deny this request and allow the unbiased county commissioners who can create and approve agreements that will protect all residents of Marshall County. Thank you.
We'll go on this side.
Tim Harmon, 2940 Sycamore Lane, Bremen. I'm also on the county council, and I can guarantee you that the elected officials coming in January 1, all 10 of us on the Board of Commissioners and the county council are opposed to industrial solar. You know, there is a lawsuit that we did file. We believe we are on sound ground. We have attorneys as well that have looked at the law, who have looked at the facts, and who have determined that this should not go through. Mr. Fox had spoken early in support of industrial solar, but he used the wrong section of the Indiana Code to state his claim. He was talking about solar energy systems. That section of the Indiana Code was written in 1981. It does not pertain to industrial solar on ag land, so be very sure about that. Mr. Adley, I believe, has proposed a denial of this with some conditions for potential approval. I think that's a lot to weigh tonight. I think a decision tonight, other than tabling or denying, is the right decision. I don't know how we can go forward with this, especially when we have all of the folks here, most of the folks here opposed. You know, the people did speak in May. A bunch of us put our name on the ballot running for local office, and we vowed publicly to oppose industrial solar. Our positions were known. They were on the ballot, so to speak, and the people overwhelmingly elected candidates in the May primary to office who opposed solar. The people, by more than 70%, this November elected candidates who oppose industrial solar. Donald Trump was supported by more than 70% of this county. He has vowed to eliminate the green energy subsidies. What are we going to do? What are other counties going to do going forward? If they have projects going and all of a sudden these huge amount of subsidies are taken away, and let's talk about those subsidies, they're enormous. Up to 30% of the project cost can be received in form of federal subsidy. Invenergy has stated that this project will be $250 million. 30% is $75 million. So the money that we may get back, we are spitting it away in form of more debt for future generations to pay for. And that's just this one. We're talking about up to 12,000 acres in Marshall County. Have you ever thought what 12,000 acres is? It's 2.5 times the size the city of Plymouth. That's 12,000 acres. That's what our ordinance would allow. It's 6 times the size of Lake Maxinkuckee. We're not talking about an acre here, a small plot here. We're talking about large amounts of land that will fundamentally alter the landscape of Marshall County. And I believe as elected officials, we have to abide by the will of the people. To go against the will of the people, there has to be some compelling interest that's so vital to go against the will of the people. We have been in this county for 188 years without solar. We will be fine the next 188 years without solar, and I ask you to deny this, please. Thank you.
We'll go back over here.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. This is
State
quite
your name and
convenient.
address for record, please.
I'm Paul Levitt. I live at 116161 18th Road, Culver, Indiana. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Please take note of the map in your handout. Ty, did you hand out my handout? Thank you. Thanks, Ty. Thanks for allowing me to speak. Please take note of the map in your handout being displayed, and I also handed out around the auditorium. This map is of the Tamarack Solar Project. Notice the little white squares on the map titled receptor locations. Actually, they are the homes of the families that are going to have an industrial solar plant in their backyard, 325 feet from a building on their property per our present ordinances. Current property value studies in 2020 that are part of the handout I gave you, and 2023 show that their property value is going to decline 7% to 30% if an industrial solar field is within 500 feet of their property line. A $200,000 home loses a minimum of $14,000. That's the 7%. 30% is going to be a major loss of $60,000. These are the people that are surrounded. That's the map that surrounds Burr Oak. The little receptor locations per their woke agenda, that they don't call them the people, families, homes that are going to lose their property value. There are 147 homes on this map whose property value will go down due to industrial plants. There is a common way to do this. It's been proven. 500 feet setbacks allow you to keep your property value. I saw the slides that Ty put up of the immense acreage. Mr. Harmon just talked about the immense acreage. I think it can be affordable and the farmer can still make money if he puts in his solar field and we have 500-foot setbacks. The present industrial ordinance has a trespassing zoning. Trespassing zoning gives one neighbor the right to infringe on their neighbor's property. Our present ordinance is 325 feet from a building on a property, not the property line. I've never heard of such an ordinance to not be from a property line. That's trespass zoning that's already in our Marshall County industrial solar. It must be 500 feet the property line to avoid property value loss per the studies shown in the handout. Just a month ago, 1 month ago, on 10/8/24, South Bend, Indiana, a bill increasing restrictions on large-scale solar projects coming in St. Joe County passed 9-0 in Tuesday's county council meeting. The bill enforces 500-foot setbacks for solar arrays from non-participating properties and for properties classified as parks and preserves in the area, which nearly doubles the previous 250 feet. Thank you for your time. Let's get it right for Marshall County.
Thank you. Ma'am, we'll go with you.
Thank you. Gail Llewellyn, 1100 East Shore Drive, Culver, and I'll be reading a letter. Good evening. My name is Adam Falstich, and I live at 13720 12th Road, Plymouth, Indiana, 46563. I'm currently on the county council and regrettably am unable to attend tonight due to a scheduling conflict, but I'm fortunate enough to have someone be able to attend and read this letter to the board on my behalf. Tonight, I ask that you table the solar project permit request until next year. There are two reasons I ask the board to consider this request. The first reason is that the IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, Indiana Senate Bill 33 report just came out in October. I may be incorrect, but I'm willing to bet that the current plan director hasn't printed that report out to be given to the board for review before the meeting tonight. The report has valuable information in it that should be reviewed, and the information contained within used as part of the consideration in the permitting process. In my opinion, some of the information contained in that report needs to be added to the current decommissioning agreement so that it can be strengthened to protect the landowners currently under lease and protect the county. My second reason I ask that you consider tabling this permit request is that there is currently an injunction that has been filed against the decommissioning agreement. The basis of this injunction is centered around the conflict of interest Commissioner Overmeyer has had throughout this process. It is not fair to the board to ask you to decide on the issue at this time when there is a high likelihood that a court ruling will nullify this board's decision. Thank you for your consideration of my request to table the approval of this permit request. Sincerely, Adam Falstich.
Thank you. Hang on a minute. We're getting close to the 9:30. We are going to cut it off at 9:30, correct?
If you wish to, yes.
Yeah. So if we cut it off at 9:30, anybody that doesn't get to speak tonight will get to speak at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
You would continue the public hearing as you wish.
And then after we get through the people that are opposed, we will go through the people that have no opinion either way, just want to make a comment. Okay? So we got 5 minutes.
All right, well, I'll keep this short and sweet for you guys. My name's Will Patterson.
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Will Patterson, 1730 Dogwood Road, Bremen, Indiana, 46506. I am also elected to the Marshall County Council. I am a science teacher and also a professor. I could give you all the acronyms behind my name, but it doesn't matter. All the county council and your incoming commissioners are against this project. We've had multiple issues of conflict of interest with our outgoing elected officials and also some board appointments. We are elected to serve the people and be stewards of the county resources. Like I said, I'm a teacher. I like education. I like the fire departments, and I like the police. We voted down an abatement. We do not want to defund our local services. I want my kids to be educated, safe, and I want fires put out. I just want to say that we represent the people, and I believe that people do not want this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Colleen Stevenson. My address is 8925 State Road 10, Argus, Indiana. I've lived in Marshall County for 30 years now. We have a small family farm we purchased from my husband's grandparents, actually. It's going on 100 years of being in the family. And I really feel for everybody on this side who is saying that it's their property and, you know, they should be able to do with what they want to with their property, because I feel that way about my farm. But when you're imposing on other people, they can't lay down at night and not know what their neighbors are feeling. They can't possibly. And yeah, I know what it's like to have a small farm and not be able to make any money from it. I know that crops are down, prices are down with crops, and the prices of fuel is up and everything is bad. And I can see why all these people looked at the money and thought that it was the right idea to do it. And I mean, I feel for them. But I also had a daughter who lived right next door to Tamarack, right there on the corner of 12. You've talked to her neighbors, they're friends with her, and I'm friends with them, they're nice people. But she just recently moved. She moved because of that solar going in right across the street. She has 4 little boys, and the oldest is in 2nd grade, and the baby is just a few months old. Nobody wants to live next door to these solar panels. She was honest because she's a realtor. She's a top realtor in Marshall County. And you know what? She went ahead and told the people that there were solar panels going in. She didn't have to do that, but she did that as a courtesy because she would want to know. And the people were aware of it, and they did buy her house, but they're not looking at it yet. And you cannot convince me that it's not going to lower the value. And there's research that shows that it lowers the value of your property. And there's no research that actually is showing how much money these companies are actually putting back into the communities. It looks good on paper that they're going to lower our taxes and they're going to do that. But I also have a big farm friend that put in all these solar panels, and they don't even, I mean, I'm talking like thousands of acres that he has a dairy farm, and he doesn't even have enough energy from his solar panels to run his dairy farm. So you can't convince me that the benefits from these solar panels are going to be so great that it's going to lower our electric bills. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Not to mention the carbon footprint. Let's not even talk about the carbon footprint when you're talking 250 cars and trucks driving up and down the road, hauling all these things with lithium and everything else that's coming from China. It's not sensible. You know what? This all boils down to money. And if you follow the money, it goes back to the government. It's not real. These are not real jobs. They're not real money. It's only money for the people who got in at the right time, just like with the wind, just like now we're dealing with this. And when it's all said and done, we're going to have to find a place to put these solar panels, and we all know that there is no place to put these solar panels when they stop working. So with that being said, I do understand why they did it, and I really feel sorry because I am one of those farmers who doesn't make money on her farm. She has another business, and my husband works full-time also. And I'm still hoping that we can save our farm for future generations. And I don't plan on it making any money for anybody. It's probably not gonna. And that's okay, because in the end, Marshall County will still have one farm in Argus, Indiana, and it will be the Stevenson farm.
Thank you. One more. We'll do one more, and we'll set up a meeting. You guys can talk at the next one, okay?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, can you state your name and address, please?
My name is Lena Tetzloff. I live at 19814 State Road 8, Culver, Indiana. I've probably called West Township my home for 24 years of my life. My family and I have lived on State Road 8 across from Lois Broker Farms, also known as Bull Ridge Farms, and we chose this area for its scenic beauty and thriving medium-scale farmland, zoned appropriately for Agricultural 1. The Broker Farm cultivates a range of essential crops just south of our home, including feed corn, seed corn, soybeans, wheat, potatoes, tomatoes, popcorn, green beans, just to name a few. These crops not only contribute to our local food supply, but also to support our local businesses, including Pioneer Hybrid in Plymouth, local co-ops, seed stores. The farming activity also sustains local trucking businesses that transport these crops and supports equipment suppliers like John Deere, Case, and Massey Ferguson, as well as our local mechanics who maintain all of this equipment. A decline in our agricultural activity would undoubtedly jeopardize the jobs, the businesses, and affecting the economic well-being of our community here in Marshall County. State Roads 8 and 17 serve as main routes for tourists visiting nearby Culver, known for its charm and its natural beauty. Families across the globe come to Culver Military and often choose to invest in their properties here for their second homes or even maybe their permanent residence, making Culver a unique and desirable community, as well as Marshall County. We must carefully weigh the potential impact that large-scale solar farms could have on our landscape, our economy, and the local character that attracts both our residents and our visitors. Thank you for considering these factors as we move forward with this zoning decision as it shapes the identity and quality of our life in our township and our county. I respectfully request that the board does not move forward with this zoning permit at this time, as an injunction was served to the county commissioner for alleging a potential conflict of interest involving Commissioner Kevin Overmeyer. I believe it would be prudent and to deny the permit at this time. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am.
Did you get her address?
What's her address?
What is her?
Oh, sorry. 19814 State Road 8, Culver, Indiana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So it would be advised that the Board of Zoning Appeals table this until a future date, given the number of individuals in attendance and an auditorium of roughly this scale is needed in order to accommodate everybody that's in favor or against or in interest of this project. It would allow staff time to be able to find that location, whether it be here or an alternative location. And we will end up sending out new letters, just like we did previously for this notification. So I would recommend tabling until staff can identify a time and date to host this event again.
Do I have a motion to table?
I move that we table this until a future date.
Do I have a second? He made the motion.
Can you,
He doesn't have a specific date yet.
Jim, can you put a mic up to your, please?
I was asking if we could pick a time from now. In other words, like I want to make a motion that we specifically pick a time, a date.
That would be ideal, but we've got to be able to find a venue of this size that can accommodate us on that date.
Okay.
Jim, one of the things I requested, Ty, is that all 5 of us appointed members were able to come to the meeting. So how we come up with this night was all 5 of us were available and the building was available. I think the building's better now. It was a rough start, but I mean, everybody can hear, can't you? I mean, I can hear, so that's really good. So,
Well, it sounds like you're talking about within a week. I'm talking about maybe next year.
We once we pick the date, you have to have 2 weeks to notify or to.
Correct. We got to follow all proper noticing procedures.
So
excuse me,
it's
Chair.
going to be 2 weeks minimum, plus whenever we can come up with a date, and then a date that we can all meet. Derek, you want to talk? Turn your mic on.
Yeah, we cannot have another public hearing or public meeting until there's been at least a 10-day notice that's been published. So to get that around after a date and a location have been identified, I don't want anybody to be misled, but I can't see any way, shape, or form it's going to be sooner than 2 weeks. So it's probably going to be more in the 3 to 4 week time frame at the soonest.
Okay. All right. So you're okay? We can go ahead with a motion? Dave made a motion to table it.
Okay,
You want a second?
so my question is, if we set a date in a month or 2 months, that gives us enough time to plan everything, doesn't it, for the facility and for our schedule? Because we got the holidays coming up. We got
For the people that don't know,
Thanksgiving.
Ty's leaving. He's going to leave us. Pull your mic away. Whoever's, maybe it's me. So Ty's leaving. So he's going to work with us to finish this. So I don't know how much time you have. It can go into next year if we have to. Ty?
There's only so many good working mics right now, and this one works. We'll be working to coordinate with you to make sure that this meeting continues to move on as it's desired in relationship to making sure this is properly noticed, making sure you guys have the opportunity to review all the findings of fact, taking into consideration those that had spoken in favor of it, those that still have yet to be able to speak in opposition to the proposed project, as well as finishing the remainder of the case. So we'll continue to work with you through those processes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm Christina Wheeler. I'm an attorney from Indianapolis for Invenergy. Can I raise a question with Mr. Jones? It's a procedural question.
Hold on, folks. I think it's a question. My assumption is going to be
Yes,
procedural.
sir. I just want to raise the procedural question that you cannot table a public hearing. You cannot
Let her ask
table a
the
public
question.
hearing.
I'm sorry, I can't.
You cannot table a public hearing. It's a constitutional due process requirement. You can recess, but the law says if you're going to recess, you have to state the date and time that your hearing will be continued. You may do what you wish. It's been 7 months since we filed our application. My client has a right, as do the people in the room, to say what they need to say. It's unfortunate that you didn't choose a location or choose a second date when we knew that there was great interest, but I think you have a legal obligation to ensure that everyone in the rooms due process is heard. The idea that you can just leave it open or table it doesn't exist in the law, and I'll just object to that and stand on that objection. You all can do what you want, and we will as well.
I understand your position, Ms. Wheeler, but again, I think due to a lack of availability of a venue and without any date specific or certain, and obviously the public hearing will be renoticed in addition to the public meeting. There are both of those components.
Yeah, if I could just point something out, please, folks, give me 1 moment, folks. Jeff, I want to point something out so that everyone is aware of the situation. So, we were very concerned. Jeff, can you please allow us a moment to just share so the public is aware?
We can't hear you. Hold on. Hold on. This meeting has gone very well so far. Everybody has been given plenty of time to talk. Ty shut them off. We can't figure out what we're going to do. We want to do it in front of all you. Let's let them talk, and we'll decide between our lawyer and their...
Thank you, Chair. I just think it is very important that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. This was a concern. Folks, this was a concern that we brought up, and we proposed doing back-to-back nights of a hearing with unlimited time. We want everyone here to be heard, and we were concerned that we wouldn't be able to finish this in one night. We multiple times requested that the county provide 2 nights, and from my understanding, Ty made me aware that this gym is available next Tuesday, the 12th, the 17th, and the 18th. And I think it would be appropriate for all the people here that do care about this to know exactly when the next meeting is, and can we do a continuation to the next meeting on one of those dates. I want everyone to have an opportunity to be heard. I respect everyone here, and I think it's important that you all know when the next meeting is.
Go ahead, Derek, you take over.
I can address that based on conversations with Ty earlier. Those other dates were available in terms of that the facility was not going to be used for some other purpose, but those dates were not guaranteed to us based on how this evening's meeting went. And that was never a promise, it was never a guarantee. It was simply that those dates were open and available if that was something that was going to be willing, the school is going to be willing to allow us to move forward with that.
And is the county room available? The county building where the typical area plan commission meetings are held.
We do have the list of availability in relationship to multiple options. You have the Plymouth Community High School Auditorium, which seats greater than 200 persons. You have the Community LEC Auditorium, which seats less than 200 persons, which based on estimates of what I see in our audience, you're approaching the 250, 300 mark. And that would also rule out the room 203 at the county building. So wanting to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be in attendance was of the utmost interest. And a part of the condition of being here at the Plymouth Auditorium was on how tonight's meeting was going to go. And there's some evaluations that we need to do with the school corporation to make sure that everything goes off properly. And so we're needing to have some connections and contact with them in order to be able to best hold that. So unfortunately, we do not have.
Would it be possible to tentatively propose a second date, and you could confirm with the county? I'm just asking a question.
If you guys would stop, let us get this figured out.
We are asking to tentatively continue this meeting to a date when this facility is available so that everyone in this room knows exactly when the next meeting is. If Ty speaks with the school corporation and something else is determined, then you guys can figure out what is the appropriate next step. But by at least continuing it tentatively to another date, we know exactly when that will be.
And we need to know our schedules to review. We just got handed binders of information we have to review. And I think all of us have jobs. So again, I want to.
So do you want us to schedule a date now? And if it's not available, we move the date.
Exactly.
Does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense to me, but if that's what it takes to be legal, I don't know.
That is our request, to tentatively continue it to
Please,
the
people,
12th.
please.
The 12th, the 17th, or 18th, when, from my understanding, the school auditorium did have availability, so that the folks here all know exactly when the next meeting is, and if it ends up not being available, or for whatever reason we cannot host it here, the county, then the date will be set to another.
So the point he's trying to make is he doesn't want it to have a new date. He wants to be continued. So we get away from the 2-week notice, is that, or the 10-day notice? Is that what I'm getting? I can't hear all the time when he talks.
I think what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Sternberg, is that you're requesting that a date certain be scheduled tonight, and if availability, if it's not available, then we would simply have to somehow notify the public that, in fact, it's not available, and we're not going to proceed with the continuation of the public hearing in a public meeting. Is that correct?
A new date would be scheduled.
I'm sorry?
A new date would be scheduled if this facility isn't available.
And if it's not available, then we'd simply be canceling that and having to re-advertise for the public meeting and the public hearing.
It would be renoticed, correct. But at least this way, you have a date set for the meeting to be continued until.
And that is, I mean, that is a possibility to, you can continue the meeting to, I guess it would be November the 12th, pending availability of the high school auditorium.
Yeah, we have a meeting on the 12th, regular meeting. What's the next date?
Chair, can I request a 5-minute recess for the attorneys of the Plan Commission and our attorneys to confide and determine the next step? Well,
Jeff, in discussing this with Ty, he's recommending, suggesting the date of November the 19th to continue the public hearing and the public meeting, and that would be pending basically Plymouth Community School Corporation allowing us to use the auditorium again for that date.
Does it need to be re-advertised?
We would not have to
Would not have to
re-advertise.
re-advertise.
But again, if the school corporation says, thanks, but no thanks, we don't want to do this again, then we'd have to somehow notify the public and then also re-advertise and send out new mailings for, again, a continuation of the public hearing and the public meeting.
Is all the board available that night? I'm not sure.
Are you available? I think it's important to have all these guys on the board.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion.
Dave's withdrawing his motion to table. The 19th, Matt can't make it.
Do we have anything scheduled for our December? Do we have anything scheduled for December? Our normal December date. You what?
How about December 3rd?
Trent? Dave?
So all three of us, or all five of us, I'm sorry, are available the 3rd.
December 3rd.
December 3rd. 3rd, is this
December
available?
3rd, Tuesday?
Hold on.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recess till December 3rd pending availability.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to recess this till December 3rd. Do you want us just to do a voice count?
Mr. Bennett? Mr. Hostetler?
Yes.
Mr. Kephart?
I have a question before I answer. Do we have to put out a public announcement since it's December 3rd again?
No, it's being continued. You do not have to re-advertise.
We don't have
it.
to. I vote no.
Mr. Miller? What's your vote?
Yes.
Your vote's yes. Mr. Gustafson?
There will be some notice sent out anyway, right?
We'll publish it in the paper.
Okay.
We'll
It's not like they're
provide
not going
notice
to be
to the
notified.
media.
Pardon me?
Or we don't. We'll provide notice to the media.
Who do you normally provide notice to?
We don't have to send the letters. I'll let
Oh,
Derek
you're
speak
saying
more.
letters to all the home?
I'll
Okay,
speak.
I follow you.
I'll let Derek refer to that.
Go ahead.
As I understand it, your motion is to continue this public hearing and the public meeting to December the 3rd, 2024 at this venue. You do need to identify a time, but then that would alleviate the need for another round of publication, another round of notices being mailed out.
Can you amend that to a 6 o'clock?
6 p.m. on December 3rd, pending availability.
So we have the motion. Do we have a second? Dave seconded. All right. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Hostetler.
Yes.
Mr. Kephart. No. Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Gustafson.
Yes.
All right. 4-1. It will be continued until December 3rd, 2024 at this venue, 6 p.m., pending availability.
Okay, anything else?
I make a
Ready to
motion,
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
So do I have a second? Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're adjourned.